Oh, good evening, everyone. Let me take that logo off. We've still got the wrong countdown and the logo across the screen. There it is. We're getting there. Thank you very much for tuning in. We should be broadcasting live on Perch TV. Please let me know if we are. Yeah, I just realised we've got the British Freedom Party countdown intro video. We need a new intro video. That's what we need. And I've been threatening to do, I actually was threatening to do one for the BFP for a long, long time. But I'm so busy. I don't remember the last time I slept for a significant period of time. So we'll get one done. We'll get one done. I think I showed you the video that we've got on the website, the Christian Nationalist. I think that's maybe a bit too long for an intro video. I actually edited that, so I hope you like it. I wanted to do it myself so that I could showcase what we're all about, the vision. So I hope you liked that. But I don't know if it's maybe a bit long for an intro. Can't remember. But anyway, we'll get one. The Templars have got a brilliant one. I'm jealous. Maybe we should just steal theirs. But anyway, I'll see. I'll do your new one. Do your new one. But for now, we'll have to make do with that. Anyway, it's got the Union flag on there, and I'm in the UK. So it's all good. Let's say hello to some people. Can you see and hear me? Let's just check that. Yes, you can. Thank you very much. All right, Marty's the first one in, and Marty said Russell Brand. Do you know what? Actually, I don't know the last time I did one of these shows. I've done a Templar report recently, but I feel like I haven't been around on this channel for a long time, so I don't remember. But anyway, thank you very much, everyone, taking the time to tune in. Yeah, Marty said Russell Brand has been granted bail after a hearing on his rape and sexual assault charges. You know, I saw something from Russell Brand earlier, and he was saying, he put a video up, and he said, "Oh, this really angers me." It was footage of Keir Starmer, and he's in the Commons, and he was saying something, and all of the establishment politicians, the MPs in the opposition party now, which is the Tories and Labour, something was said, and they were all scoffing. You know how they all do, because they're all friends. This is what I'm saying. They're all friends. They're all in that club. It's a one big disgusting, vile, paedophile club, and just thankfully none of us are in it. Wouldn't want to be, but this is what gets me with Russell Brand. Is he put this video up and said, "This really angers me," and he says, "You know what angers me the most is that they're all friends." Okay, pot kettle time. Russell Brand was not talking about grooming gangs, about the 1 million British girls who have been groomed and raped and tortured. Russell Brand wasn't sticking up for me when I was getting flung in jail for going after gangs of men that have raped children when no other man in the country was doing it, and no other man has done it since. Russell Brand didn't say a word. In fact, he was a hardline lefty who publicly came out against the likes of me and your good selves, who would be against such atrocities. And all of a sudden now, he claims that he is disgusted that the members of parliament are all laughing and joking whilst there should be a grooming gang inquiry. Isn't it? And he says, look at them all. It's because they're all part of the elite. He is the elite, just like Lawrence Fox is part of the elite. When Lawrence Fox was hobnobbing with all of those people in Hollywood, just as much as Russell Brand. In fact, Russell Brand was deeper in that whole circle. They didn't give a hoot about grooming gang victims. But since Russell Brand copped a few allegations which have turned into charges for rape and sexual assault, all of a sudden he cares deeply about such issues. And we see this across the board. We see it across the board. I've spoken about it recently on other podcasts that people have had me on doing interviews. They want to talk to me about all of the stuff that's been going on in the right wing for all these years. People have been overlooking this. I'm glad that we're out of that scene, because there are so many people. Tommy Robinson, first conviction he ever got was for attacking a police officer that pulled him off of his girlfriend that he was beating, right? Woman beater. Paul Golding, woman beater. What's your man's name in Australia that's friends with Tommy? Avi Yemeni, done for throwing a chopping board at his wife. Like, all of these men would run around the streets and pretend that they care about women being abused and girls being abused. And now we've got Russell Brand facing rape allegations. And frankly, do I believe that Russell Brand acted inappropriately with women when he was at the height of his power? I can believe it. I can believe it. The height of his fame, drugged out of his nut on like 2-week-long binges. Yeah, doesn't sound unbelievable to me. But they all like to jump on it. So anyway, Marty, thank you for the update. I'm not going to make this show about Russell Brand. Joseph Taylor, good to see you. And Lady Matriarch, good afternoon. And Matthew Schneider, good morning. Nice to see you. And Charles, nice to see you, Charles. Good afternoon to you. And Ivan as well. Nice to see you, Ivan. Brian Siddick, good to see you. I was thinking earlier, there's quite a few of you that are coming over in June. I can't wait, actually. So there's a few of you that we've never met. And we've spoken for a long time in the chat and what have you. And it'd be really, really good to catch up and to see you all at the Priory, the lovely Priory, where it's all going on. Yeah, I can't wait. So those of you coming over in June, I'm counting down to see you all. Who else have we got? Roger Madison, good day. Nice to see you, Roger. And Wes as well. Greetings in Christ to you. Just getting my greetings in. I'll have to catch the rest on rewind. I have to cut the church grass. There you go. Good man. Wes is a good man. Mitch Cameron's in. Good day to you. And Michael Wells. Sorry, I'm like so far behind with ranting about Russell Brand. Marty says, I boycotted the elections. Well, we're going to talk about the elections. Troy's in. Good to see you, Troy. Brand said he accepted Jesus a year ago, I think. Yeah, he did say that. He did. But these allegations were made quite a long time ago. And it just stinks. And the thing is, Russell Brand has had this weird journey, right? So he went from being like an arch liberal, like Marxist. I don't know if you saw the video. I'm not going to play it ever again. I won't play it ever again, I promise. But we've played a video on this show before of Russell Brand at the height of his fame, when he was really high on drugs, like completely out of his nut on like vodka. And he did this show where he like performed a sex act on a man, and it was all, and it just like peak degeneracy. And he's got his Karl Marx t-shirt on, and I just, look, call me a cynic, I just find it astonishing when people flip-flop. This would be like me coming out tomorrow and saying I'm a Marxist, I'm a communist, I am, like, imagine me coming out tomorrow saying, look, listen guys, we've had a good run, but I've decided that I'm a hardline communist. I think everybody would fall off of their chair. In fact, I don't think anyone would buy it. I just don't think anyone would buy it. So, but we'll see. Debs, nice to see you, Debs. And Ivan says, oh yeah, Ivan, sorry, it's etched into Ivan's memory. I still remember the video of Russell Brand going into a sex shop and then giving the guy in a public bathroom. Yeah. I'm sorry to say that I probably inflicted that upon you, Ivan, but sometimes people need to know. People need to know. Ragnar, good to see you. Brian says Brand is a deceptive. Yeah, absolutely. I do think these people are being really deceptive, but and it's worse when they're using the Lord's name, because Brand was like, oh, I've become very spiritual, but he wouldn't talk about Jesus. And then he said that he's a professing Christian, but this all coincided with the allegations that were made. And then at the same time, he's like sticking up for Andrew Tate. It's like, well, actually, no, you can't stick up for someone, a Muslim. Andrew Tate is like the most famous Muslim groomer. The most famous leader of a Muslim grooming gang in the world is Andrew Tate. And I don't understand why people are on the right are entertaining him. So what? Oh, he's got loads of money and a Bugatti. Yeah, you can't take it with you. Treasures in heaven and all that. Yeah, hopefully, Michael. Well, hopefully he's legit. Let's see. Right. Anyway, let's get into some stuff. So what do I want to talk to you about first? There's so much going on. I'm going to probably talk about the UK first of all, ladies and gents. I know lots of you are tuning in from across the pond, but there's a lot to say, really. It's quite a day for right-wing politics. Right-wing politics. I'm saying that right-wing because they're not right-wing at all. But so the British political system for many, many, many years, as long back as anyone can remember, has been, I mean, in fact, throughout history, it's been two-horse race. And as it stood up until today, the two horses were the Labour Party, which would be your Democrats in America, and the Conservative Party, which would be your Republican Party in America. And Reform have come along and were making gains, and there was a lot of hype. And we've just had a load of council elections, and there have been some significant gains that Reform have made. Now, there's something that needs to be said about council elections. The turnout is incredibly low in council elections. They are nowhere near the same as parliamentary elections. The turnout's incredibly low. However, if you take an entire council, which, to give you some context, the BNP, the British National British National Party that Nick Griffin used to run, when Nick Griffin used to run it, on several occasions was on the cusp of taking an entire council. They were like one councillor away from taking an entire council. Once you have a council, you've got genuine power in that area. Now, the reason I do right wing in the little imaginary inverted commas is because Reform are not a right wing party, right? And so no right wing party is going to be allowed to make significant gains in the UK. Reform essentially are another establishment party, but they are the only establishment party that was outside of the uni party that was able to make significant gains, right? So here's where I'm interested in this, because, you know, we've said for a long time that politics is not the way that we get out of the mess that we're in the UK. And listen, I don't need to harp on about it. You will see. This is now the opportunity for people to see that. Let me share my screen with you. This is the most important thing that could have happened, and this is what I was hoping would happen, and it has. Reform have, let me scroll down. Reform have taken full control over Kent County Council. Okay. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's one council, which is the whole council, by the way. You might think that's one council, you know, so what? There are others. They've taken full control of Nottinghamshire Council. They've taken full control of Derbyshire County Council, Lancashire County Council, Durham County Council, right? Lincolnshire County Council, Staffordshire County Council. Big gains, big gains. And they won a by-election in Runcorn, which previously had a Labour significant majority, like 15,000 majority, and they won it by 6 votes. So you know the Labour are going to be absolutely gutted. But let me tell you why this one is important. Because this area in England, which is where I used to campaign, if those of you who remember, I was arrested and jailed for confronting a load of migrants who raped a child down in the southeast of England. That's where this is, this council right here. And it's the Kent coast where the migrants are coming in on small boats, right? So you've all seen it, whether you're in America or you're in the UK or wherever you're in between, European brothers and sisters tuned in. I think everybody's heard the term small boats from the UK. We've got an influx of illegal immigrants pouring into our country through the Kent coast, right? Basically, they're coming over in dinghies, which is just farcical, right? I always say this, I always make this comparison, but anybody who's studied history or, you know, even just watched a marginally factual historical film will know the scale of like the Spanish Armada, which I always think back when I think about these historical events and I think about how we defeated such things. Of course, there was no technology back then. This was like this was like hand-to-hand or ship-to-ship combat. We were able to defend our tiny island. We are a small island, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We were able to defend ourselves against an armada, yet we cannot stop a dinghy load of like Eritreans who have all got their smartphones in their hands and are all filming themselves coming over to get their Domino's pizza and their hotel rooms. We can't stop that. Well, Reform's entire MO, their leader being Nigel Farage, has been to focus on the small boats. Now, I'm going to point something out here. I don't want to be a killjoy because there are people all over the UK that are so happy. They're like, this is amazing. And it is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Really significant gains. The only party that was able to shake them up like that is another establishment party, but significant gains, and it'll be rattling people. And this was without a Tory coalition. There was no Tory coalition here. This was just Reform doing their thing. But their MO, their main thing, has been the small boats, because it's Nigel Farage who runs the party, and his issue that he's jumped on are the small boats. And again, this is another example of like establishment shills who in the past have absolutely condemned this rhetoric. So another example, when I was being hounded by the state in the UK, I was on bail for going after those rapists. I'd copped a charge for a woman walked up to me. She was in a burqa and she walked up to me and called me a slapper because you could see my hair. I had a hat on, but you could see my hair. She called me a slapper. I literally like covered everywhere else. You could see my hands on my face. You could see her hands on her face, but she called me a slapper. They convicted me of racially aggravated harassment, alarm, and distress. So I had all this pressure. They took my house. I mean, it was constant. It was relentless. And, you know, some of you were actually around with me at that time. So you remember those days. It was madness. And Nigel Farage was jumping straight on the bandwagon. So President Donald Trump, in his last term that he was serving, retweeted a few videos of mine. And the entire world went into meltdown because he never used to use his social media. He never used to use Twitter. This was like the first time he decided to do it. And he decided to do it using my videos. And so I became like this public enemy #1. And for like 72 hours, it was crazy. You know, when there's like a terrorist attack and there's a banner across the bottom of a TV screen, my name was on that banner for nearly 3 days. It was just insane. And Nigel Farage jumped straight on the bandwagon. She's a racist. She's been convicted of racism, which I hadn't. I hadn't been convicted of racism. But, you know, they can say this stuff on their platforms and lie. And I've got no recourse. What am I going to do? You know, in fact, he did this and I called him. It was on LBC. He was saying that I was convicted racist. And I called LBC and I said, do you want to let Nigel know that I'm on the phone and let's discuss this to his entire audience that he's lied. And they put the phone down and they blocked my number because obviously they don't like the truth. So establishment politicians, Nigel Farage is on the payroll, is mad Zionist. Richard Tice is a mad Zionist, mad for the vaccines, out in Ukraine talking about how we need to send money out to Ukraine. And
hey everyone, I'm going to start with this video. I got a couple other ones. A real good one, the second one I'm going to play is about a judge and the Karoline 800M stuff going on with the lawsuit. It turns out that there was money changing hands to make her go after him for the cross, wearing a cross in the courtroom and that kind of stuff, actually finding people and this and that. And with Discovery, she got communications of some senators and stuff like that, putting pressure on him to go after conservatives, basically. It's all one hand washes the other, all in on it. So the guy tried to flee the country and take all the money out of his bank and this and that. And, you know, this judge in the DC circuit, I think that's part of the reason. Maybe someone in the chat will know if DC circuit thing why Judge Janine is now stepping in there to the DC circuit and taking over there. There's a lot of shake up there and a lot more to come too. It was an $800 million lawsuit about wearing the cross, trying to find her or someone else for wearing a cross in the courtroom, wearing a little cross on your neck. You know, try to find someone for that. I didn't think that was even possible. I mean, I could see if it was like huge or something. It was a little tiny thing, you know. Maybe I could see it was huge even then. I don't know. And then the other one's a Capl Police, former Capl Police Lieutenant Johnson there. He's come forward and he's talking out about what happened actually on that day. One of the ones on the Capl Police side and saying about all the communications and that was going on before and during and after, because he knows the inside of all that and what was said and done and all that, who was promoted, all that kind of stuff. So, all right, back to this.
The elephant in the room, ladies and gents, let us not forget, lest we forget, is the fact that a Pakistani Muslim who lives in Scotland, yeah, just across the way in Scotland, is in charge, is the chairman of the Reform Party. So we are dealing with another establishment party. Let's not get too carried away, but this is significant. This is significant. This specifically is significant because here's actually a very good opportunity for us, everyone, to demand that Reform put their money where their mouth is. They've talked a good game for a long time. We will do this. We will stop the boats. Nigel Farage has even been going in and out of barbershops and saying, oh, these barbershops are a racket. You know, it's money laundering. Yeah, we know all of this. I grew up in Southeast London. You don't have to tell me about barbershops. The barbershops in Southeast London that were all being run by Turks and Albanians, they weren't just running, it wasn't just money laundering, they were grooming and raping girls. I was walking through Southeast London when I was a child with 2 other friends of mine, and I'm talking young. And I walked past one of those barbershops. In fact, it was a few doors down, but the Albanian guys that run them had a house that they used to run. They'd done all their drug dealings and everything from this house. And I used to walk past there. And I walked past with my friends, and they came out and they took us. They grabbed us and dragged us into a doorway. And it was one man. This is, you know, God sent an angel to intervene. One man ran across the road and we got out of that doorway. We'd probably never be seen again. We probably would have been trafficked off into some hellhole as sex slaves. So, you know, these issues have been going on since I was a nipper, which was quite a long time ago now. Yeah. And none of these guys have spoken about it, but all of a sudden they're on the bandwagon. They're like, okay. But the main issue that they campaign on is they're going to stop the boats. Well, now they've got control of Kent County Council. Now they've got control of that. They have an opportunity here to really cause waves, because members of parliament, say you vote in your local MP, you're living in Kent, you vote in your local MP, they stand in the Commons and they're speaking on your behalf, but they don't speak on your behalf because they don't care about you. They're speaking on their own behalf. They're getting £90,000 a year, plus like 30,000 expenses and payroll and all the rest of it. All their mum and the dad and their wife and the dog walker, and everybody's on the payroll. Everybody's scoffing at the disgusting, filthy trough in the Commons. It's filth. I despise it. Right? But they're all up there. They speak on your behalf, but they don't speak on your behalf because they don't care about you. But councils, they've got the purse strings. They get the budget for that area, for that local authority. They get the budget. They hold the purse strings. They determine what is done. So why is Kent so important? All of those other councils are equally important. I'm not saying that there's any part of the UK that's more important than another, but this is where the boat people are coming in. And what's happening when they come in? They literally getting a Domino's pizza ordered, which taxpayers are paying for, and it's being budgeted through that council. They're getting put in hotels in Kent. They're being given all of these phone cards and these temporary accommodation and the food, they get like a food allowance, all of the services that these people are getting. Many of them are getting in Kent. Now, I remember when I used to campaign down in Kent, people were at their wits' end. You're talking about a beautiful part of the country, and when you go down to the Kent coast, people are absolutely in despair because these little towns, these seaside towns, English seaside towns, are overrun with these men that are coming in on boats. And you've seen them all. They're menacing. There's no women with them. You might get the odd woman on the odd boat, but largely they are fighting age men, and it is menacing, and people are scared. And generally, well, you find this in certainly in the UK, in seaside towns. I was talking about myself here as well, you know, but it's same in Northern Ireland, but not quite the same as in England. But in seaside towns, you find that people go there to like retire. So it's older folk as well. So imagine it. So let us see. Let's see if reform, this is a fantastic opportunity, a really fantastic opportunity for reform to put their money where their mouth is. They have spoken a good game about fixing all of this stuff. And it's very difficult, actually, for a member of parliament, for an MP, let's say Nigel Farage goes into the Commons and says, I'm going to stop the boats, right? Well, he can't physically stop the boats. Yeah, I know a way to stop the boats, but we won't go there today. He can't physically stop the boats, but he can certainly stop the services and provisions that these people are getting when they land. Now, of course, the government could step in and scupper things, and all of that could happen. But let us see, in the first instance, this is the best situation that could have occurred in these council elections, is for reform to take this particular council so that everybody now has an opportunity to say, okay, let's see it. Stop all of the temporary accommodation in Kent. All of the hotels that have been commandeered. You've seen the videos. I used to go into those hotels, even like not that long ago, a couple of years ago, I was in one down in Canterbury. And all of the staff are in there and they're all very cloak and dagger because it's completely immigrant run now. Like, it's just for immigrants. Sorry, not immigrant run, but it's immigrant house. That's it. You cannot get a hotel room. And that is why I spoke about this earlier, about people coming over for the knighting ceremony in June. We're holding our knighting ceremony. Do you know how expensive the hotels are? Even here in Northern Ireland, how expensive the hotels are, because we are housing immigrants in our hotels in Northern Ireland. And I haven't been given a say in that. I don't suppose you've been given a say in it. Nobody's been given a say in England. So it doesn't just, it's a ripple effect. It's really a ripple effect. Deb says, reform marks the end of Conservative by taking their electors. However, reform under Farage will be a mess. If Farage is replaced, reform might make, well, I mean, realistically, reform is Farage. I know that Rupert Lau, they had all that set too, and there was a lot of skullduggery. And this is politics. This is how disgusting politics is. It really is. Yeah. Charles says, reform are a party of millionaire businessmen. They don't care for any of us. This is absolutely true. Mitch Cameron says, yeah, Bush boy buddies. Exactly. That's what these people are. But now we have an opportunity to stick it on them and say, okay, come on, let's show us. Let us see. Let's see. Let's see what you're going to do. You've been promising to do all of this. So anyway, more about that shortly. But it's interesting. We're still seeing results coming in. It's like the slowest count you've ever seen. But it's worth keeping an eye on. And yeah, so I'm interested. I'm looking at some of the comments here. Charles says reform will bottle it. I think so. I think so. Because let me tell you something that happened in Northern Ireland, right? I can't remember. I think it was the DUP. They were restricting people, homosexuals, from using certain services, buildings. I don't know if it was like religious buildings, something like that. And basically they were coming after the actual councillors themselves, the individuals, the government, to try and force their hand. And so, listen, this is when you'll see if someone is a die-hard nationalist, a die-hard patriot, or whether they are just full of gas. Because if you are genuinely patriotic, then you will put your head above the parapet, no matter what the cost. And I've done it. I've lost the house. I've lost the car. I've lost all the bank accounts, lost over £250,000. I mean, and look, it's not a competition, but I don't see anybody else who has suffered a loss on the scale that I have and not skulked off. And then by contrast, you have other people in the right wing who are literally raking it in. Nigel Farage has made millions and millions out of becoming this kind of face of the right wing. And he's not right wing. He says he wants all the Indians to come in. You know, the chairman's a Muslim. Even back when he was running UKIP, I remember I stood in a by-election once and I told people, don't vote for us. Don't vote. At the time I was in Britain First. I said, don't vote for us because there's no way that we can win this seat. Vote for UKIP. This is what I said at the time, because they could win, and they did. But they had a defector, so they kept it. But I said, vote for them. The only reason I was standing is because there was a mega mosque being built, and I wanted to get in front of the BBC and ITV and Channel 4 and all the rest of them and tell them that we don't want any more mosques in our country. And that's exactly what I did. And it upset everybody. They cancelled my election leaflet that I was sending out through the Royal Mail, which everybody is legally entitled to. They refused to send it out because it had a picture of a woman with a burqa on and a mosque. And it was saying like, no more mosques. And all of the, and this was down in, this was in Kent. This was in Rochester. Was it Rochester and Stroud, I think? It was a long time ago. And so we said, don't vote for us. Give your vote to UKIP. But we're standing just to noise everyone up about the mega mosque because Nigel Farage and UKIP won't touch it. And do you know what Nigel Farage did? Right? They interviewed him and said, listen, you know, this Branson creature's standing against everyone in Rochester, but telling them to vote for, I don't know why I'm calling myself the Branson creature, just adopted that now, we all have. But anyway, standing against everybody in Rochester and Stroud and saying she doesn't want votes, she wants people to vote for you, but she wants to stop the mega mosque. And he said, well, you know, we don't have anything to do with her, but we would rather see lots of little mosques than maybe one big one. And I thought, oh, you spineless cretin. I mean, seriously, I'm here. And I was young. It was like in my 20s. And it was crazy days. It really was. It was crazy days. But yeah, you know, when given the opportunity, even back then, they were really staunch. Like, oh, no, we like mosques. We just want lots of little mosques instead of one big one. So, come on. Well, they've got their wish because there is a mosque on every corner. on the mainland of the UK. Apart from, you want to go up to the Scottish Highlands, you might be all right. But generally, there are mosques everywhere on the mainland of the UK. So Reform, Nigel Farage and UKIP, which is, the original Reform, I guess, they got what they wanted. So I'm not expecting miracles, but this is good. Because you know me, I like to noise everybody up. And I like it, especially like it. I really, really like it when people have been talking a good game for years and years. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to stop this. We're going to stop that. Really, Rishi Sunak said he was going to stop the boats. Not only did they not stop the boats, but they took in a record number of refugees. At that time, refugees, migrants, immigrants, illegal immigrants, invaders. The next party to get in, the Labour Party, they said, oh, we're going to stop these boats. Yes, this needs to get under control. So far this year, they have taxied more people than we've ever seen into the UK across the English Channel. And let us not forget that 1.4 million visas were given legally to Indians, and goodness knows who else, but majority Indians, to bring not one, not two, not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, not 10, 11, but 12 family members per visa. 1.4 million visas lets in up to 12 family members. That's 16.8 million people potentially coming into the UK every year legally, right? That's on top of the 40 odd thousand that are coming in illegally on the boats that everybody wants you to focus on because they don't want to talk about the fact that legal immigration, which Nigel Farage says he wants. Remember, Nigel Farage said he took down the BNP. He gloats about it. He took down the BNP so that people didn't have the option of voting for people like Nick Griffin, right? This is what he said. People like Nick Griffin. Well, these days, people like Nick Griffin would be pretty much every white Indigenous person in the UK because we're all sick of being treated like second-class citizens. And he gloated that he single-handedly destroyed the right wing so that now we can bring in more Indians legally. This is what the man said. So I'm not holding out a lot of hope, but I do like having the opportunity to stick it on these people after they've been slabbering for a long time that they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Marty said, Nigel loves the Indians. He does indeed. Right, let's move on. I want to talk about something that happened in the US now. Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm going to show this video. This has been so controversial. It's everywhere, and I'm going to show it. There's some not very nice language in it, but we'll talk about it.
You call him a nigger, the child?
The fuck you talking
Did you
about?
call the child the nigger word?
None of your fucking business.
It is my own business. You call him a nigger? Okay, why don't you have the balls to say it right now again?
Fuck you, nigger.
Okay.
Nigger.
All right, that's what you say.
You don't go digging through people's shit, you dumb fuck.
Nobody dig into your shit.
A little fucking kid just did, you dumbass.
That little kid, you call him a nigger?
Yeah.
The little child?
What if he acts like one is gonna?
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child, 5-year-old, a nigger, the N-word.
If that's what he's gonna act.
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him.
That's what he's gonna act like.
You know, that's the hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
I don't give a shit.
Huh.
Fuck off.
Okay, we'll see about that, what the internet has to say about you.
Okay. Those of you who have a social media account, I expect will have seen this video, right? They will have seen this video. It's been doing the rounds, and I'm going to just give you my take on it because I think it's necessary to when something like this happens and it's so divisive and it's so polarizing. I think throwing in what I think is a kind of middle ground is helpful, even though it's probably not the most popular opinion that I've ever voiced. But here you go. I don't think calling a 5-year-old boy a nigger is a good idea. I just don't think that that's where we're at as adults, right? Now, I'm going to say something here, and I want people to accept this in the spirit that it's said, because we are the Christian Nationalist Party, we are Christians, and we are nationalists, which means that we could have members in Zimbabwe, in Nigeria, well, not Rhodesia, but Nigeria. We could have members, if they're Christian, they want to be a member, and they want to live in their own nation, they could potentially join our movement, right? and good luck to them. We support their plight. I support the plight of the Christians in Nigeria who are being killed by the Islamists. I support the plight of them. I support the plight of the Indians that are being slaughtered by the Hindus in India. The Christians, I support the plight of them in their nations, right? In their nations. There's a few things that need to be said. Few things. First of all, I don't think it's edifying or even particularly responsible to be running around using that kind of language when it comes to kids. I sat and I thought about this because, listen, we've all got to the point, I think it's safe to say, where we've had enough. And I'm going to show you another video of something that happened in the UK in the same sort of vein. It's a race issue. It was doing the rounds and it infuriated so many people. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But here's the problem. Here's the deal, is that if we lower ourselves to the standard of these people, then more fool us. And I have to say that when I saw the video and I realized this is what's been alleged. A 5-year-old black boy went into the bag, what do you call them? A child that she had a like nappy, not nappy bag, but you know what I mean, the kid's bag that she had all of his nappies and his food in. I think there was like food, a yogurt, something like that. She had it in her hand. The child went into the bag and took something out. And then the guy came over and said, "Did you just call him a N-word?" Let's just say N-word, shall we? Because I'll probably end up in jail. I've said it already, but I said it in the context that, you know, I don't think it's great. But I mean, genuinely, I don't think it's edifying for us to be running around using that kind of language. I mean, look, I'm also a Templar, and we got people that are involved in the Templar movement. We had a someone that got in touch the other day. We get people in touch all the time from the Knights Templar contact form, and they're all over the world. And these are like devout Christians in their nations. And can you imagine if I was like, "Oh yeah, you know, he's an N-word"? It's just, come on, it's not how you do things. But I was thinking about it. I thought, okay, let me just consider where I'm at with this and how I would feel. So there's a 5-year-old black boy, and he's rummaging down this bag and he's taking some stuff out, right? So first and foremost, what kind of parenting is going on here? Now, kids do stuff. They do. You can't keep your eye on them all the time, especially if you've got several of them. Kids do things. And kids steal. I mean, it's kids do it. Like it's not. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but some kids do it, and especially if they come from trashy homes, I would tend to think this is quite a sad affair. Now, so I thought, right, if I'm sitting there and this little black kid is going through, say I've got one of my godchildren with me, and this little black kid has gone into my bag and stolen something, what would I do? What would I do? Would I tell him off? Yeah, I would. I'd be really stern, and I would say, you're not allowed to take other people's belongings. And then I would go to his parents and say, like, what on earth how are you raising this child if he's going to come into a stranger's belongings and steal, right? But that's how I think I would deal with that. If it was a little white boy that came over and took it, I would do exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. I do think that dropping the N-bomb on a 5-year-old is quite a bizarre thing to do. I'm going to just say it. I don't think it was the right thing to do. Now, I know that people are at the end of their tether. I know that. And there's been this big movement of people online that are like, this is the end of white guilt and she's the mum of the year. And I do see the side of this that's like, you know what? White people have had enough, especially in America. I know that the gang, the violence, the level of violence from, and it's senseless violence as well, from the black community inflicted on the white community. Even just the other week, we had a young lad stabbed in the heart because he told a black fella that he was in the wrong seat, and all of the black community rallied round and put out a fundraiser for this young black fella, and he's been bailed. He's not even in jail. He's not even on remand. He's been bailed, and they fundraised like $500,000, maybe more. And I remember thinking, this is outrageous. So I get all of this is just so infuriating. Black Lives Matter are literally in the UK. They were trying to tear down our flag at the cenotaph. They tried to set fire to the flag at the cenotaph. right? So I get it. People are angry and tensions are running high. But I don't think that this is the way that we should carry ourselves. And I don't think that we should jump on this bandwagon of, yeah, let's promote this as, like, this woman's being called now Mother of the Year. I just don't think, personally, here's my take on it. She's got a Thor hammer tattooed on her hand. As far as I understand, the woman is a pagan. I'm going to call a spade here. There's trash in every part of society, whether it's the white community, the black community, even the Muslim community have got tiers of people that they want to be around. The Muslim doctors who are high earners in the UK, for example, they don't want to be living next door to the Muslim drug dealers who are grooming and raping girls. They don't want to. Not necessarily even because they know what they're doing. It's just every society has got a better character of people that tend to stick in more affluent areas, and there's trash in every society. And I thought, would I want to live next door to that woman? Would I want to live next door to a woman that behaves and speaks like that? And this is what I think we need to ask ourselves, because I believe that balkanization in the United Kingdom is an inevitability. I think it's going to happen. It has to. I think there's going to be a civil war. And I think that much like we've got here in Northern Ireland, because in Northern Ireland, we have a prime example of two communities that are the same race, but absolutely hate each other to the point where we've had to erect huge walls, peace walls, they call them, and live separately. And before we did that, people were killing each other from the respective communities. But now there is an understanding that we live in our separate communities, and it's fine. It's working. These are the same race of people. I have always said, and I maintain to my dying day, that we need to separate, right? From along racial lines, along cultural lines, we have to segregate. We cannot live. You cannot expect a high trust society when you are living in areas that are predominantly ethnic minority. And people might find that an offensive statement, but the proof is in the statistics. You can see it for yourselves. And I get it when people are in communities where they have to put up with like relentless violence and, you know, gangbangers and all of that. I get it. People are at the end of their tether, but we are better than this. We're better than saying to a little kiddie that he's an N-word, in my opinion. Even if we're angry, I would have let the parents know that I'm angry. And by the way, it turns out that one of the parents was under investigation, apparently, for an alleged sexual assault of a minor. So these are not good people. These are not good people. If somebody said to me, there's a child in the custody of a man who is under investigation of sexually of raping a minor, I would want to take that child, whether the child is black, white, pink with green spots. I would want to take that child and have that child resettled with a family where there's no nonsense in the house. And why is this guy even in a playground? Why is the guy even in a playground? You know, like if he's on these sort of charges. But anyway, I saw it, and what's happened since is they've created a give, send, go for the girl. And the give, send, go, it's like a GoFundMe thing, is up to, I think it's nearly 300,000. So she said that what they did was she dropped the N-word. The guy filmed it. You could hear from his voice. He said, I'll wait to see what the internet has to say about this. And then they got her social security number. They got her address. They got her phone number. They doxed her, which means put it online. For those of us who are boomers, because I don't like all that kind of language. They put her information online. She was then scared. Nobody wants to live with that kind of fear. Nobody. And in the United States, unlike in the United Kingdom, you have a constitution. Free speech is protected. I don't know that is protected under free speech. I don't know. But certainly here in the UK, Deb said it in the chat, you'd be in jail. Like in the UK, you'd say that, you're in jail. They'd be through the door already. There'd be no fundraiser, nothing. You'd be in jail. In fact, if there was a fundraiser, they'd take your money. Okay. But I just think we need to be careful, because there are lots of people that pertain to be in our movement, our nationalist, ours is Christian. They don't claim to be Christian, but our nationalists, white nationalists even, movement, and they're pagans, and they're hateful, and they're not, they hate our Christian faith just as much as these gangbangers, just as much as the Muslims and the Hindus. They hate our Christian faith. They wouldn't want to live under Christian nationalism. They wouldn't want to live under that. They wouldn't want, because Christian nationalism actually doesn't support this total free speech. How can it? That means that people are allowed to blaspheme publicly. How can it? They wouldn't like that at all. And so I watched it and I just thought, we need to be really careful here that we aren't propping people up and literally labeling them as heroes when, yes, they are reacting to something that was very antagonistic. She was antagonized. There's a kid rooting through her bag. But I just want you to think, if you were in the park and your bag was on the floor and it had your kids like yogurts and stuff and nappies in there, and a 5-year-old kid who they say is autistic, but I'm not even focusing on that issue because apparently everyone's autistic these days. It's like a thing. Everybody's autistic these days. But I just want you to think that if you were in a park and a little black kid came running over, or you turned around and you saw and he was in your bag and your kids and he took a yogurt out or some food, would you turn around and call him an N-word? Because I just wouldn't. I just wouldn't. And that doesn't mean that I want to live with loads of black people, or that I want to move to Africa, or that I want the Africans to move here. You know, you can be balanced on this. I think it's really important that people stay grounded, because what we're dealing with here is just decency. And there are, within white British communities, white American communities, there are trash, and then there are decent people. And I've been quite comforted actually to see there are quite a few people online that have come out and said, you know what, this ain't it. Like, yeah, it's terrible. What they've done to her is disgusting. You know, doxing her and putting her in danger and all the rest of it. That's disgusting. But are we going to cheerlead for someone and call her the mother of the year when she's behaving that way? Is this, what saddens me is that kid has probably got zero parenting going on at home. And all that's happened now is there's just more and more and more ammunition to just beat the white people and feel sorry for the offenders, the people that aren't raising their kids right. That's all that this is being used as ammunition for. And it's really infuriating. And it isn't just in the US that incidences like these are happening that's really divisive. Let me show you something that happened here in the UK. Take a look.
What are you running away for? What was that about?
White people are inferior.
White people are inferior?
I did that because I wanted to call the police.
You throw food at my girlfriend who's white because white people are inferior?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say to you. Call the police, it's fine. Are you going to keep following me?
Yeah, I'm going to keep following you.
What are you going to do?
We'll find out where you work.
No, you're not going to find
Yeah, I will. You're going to go viral.
I don't want to be in the house.
No, I'm sorry. You should have kicked off there. I told you to stand on your own.
This is what we're doing. Look, again, I do maintain, and I say this as a Christian and as a Christian nationalist, we should not all be thrust together. This is the problem. We should not all be thrust together. And the establishment are doing their bit to make sure that tensions are always running high. They are doing their bit. But you're always going to get people that are just hateful and antagonistic, like that stupid woman with a mouthful of food saying that white people are inferior in a white Christian nation. Why don't you leave? Why don't you leave? I mean, I don't believe that that woman is a Christian because Christians don't tend to speak like that. But why don't you leave and go back to a black nation then? You don't want to be around. If white people are inferior, why are you living in a white nation? And that's what the UK is, by the way. It is a white Christian nation. We are white Europeans. And so it's just, you wouldn't dream of seeing this kind of footage. A white person going into a majority black country, a black country, like not the majority, a black country like Nigeria, like Kenya. Imagine me being there, stuffing my face, telling a load of black people that they're inferior in their country. This is the problem, is that for a long time, we've all been told that we have to be tolerant, and if we've all got the same values, then everything can work out. No, that's not even biblical. That's why the Christian Nationalist Party was so necessary, because there was this misconception for a long time that Christian nationalism means that everyone lives together as Christians. No, that's not what Christian nationalism is at all. At all. And if you want to go and check, you know, there's loads of information on the new website. And I do hope that people take a moment to have a look at the new website, because a lot of work went into it. But if you go into like the party ideology section, you can see our stance on all of this. And we explain it in great detail so that people understand it is not biblical to have a globalist utopia of all Christians. I want everyone to come to Christ. Everyone in every nation. I want everyone to come to Christ. And the Great Commission in the Bible, in Matthew's Gospel, tells us to go out and take the good news to every single nation. God created nations, and he set the boundaries of those nations and the people that they belong to. And that is biblical, and you can read that in the book of Acts. And if you want a short guide to find all of the relevant texts and verses, look at the website. It's all on there, so that you're equipped if anybody comes at you and says, oh, well, you're a Christian nationalist, which means you don't care about skin color, or you don't care about ethnicity, or you don't care about culture. Yeah, absolutely we do. All of the above, because God does. God doesn't make mistakes. God didn't mistakenly make me white and somebody else black. It's farcical to believe that. It's farcical. It's a nonsense. The Bible specifically tells us that nations were created, and God created the boundaries of those nations. And so Christian nationalism is the most important thing for people to grasp, is because when you grasp that, not only do you want to go home, but you want to go home, you want to live in your homeland, your indigenous homelands, and you want Christ to be centered in each of those homelands. Imagine that. I mean, we're going to have that one day. Christ is going to return. There's going to be a new world, a new heaven, a new earth, and it's going to be beyond glorious. And I hope that we are all there together, brethren. But for now, we've got parties on the right wing in the UK that are talking about mass deportation. They have to go back. We're going to send them back. We're going to mass immigration, re-migration. It's everywhere. My old party, Britain First, is talking about it, that I used to be involved with. And it's all lies. UKIP, if there's a party called Homeland, that's their main thing, re-immigration. And I am on board with what they're saying. Like, of course, re-immigration would be fantastic, but it is not going to happen. Especially this side of a civil war, perhaps after a civil war. And never write anything off, you know. Remember, the Spanish were living under Muslim occupation for nearly 800 years before we took our European lands back. I'm not a Spaniard, but, you know, Europeans, we can do it. Never say never. But this side of a civil war in the UK, there will be no mass remigration. And Reform are already talking about legally bringing in a load of Indians. They've got a Pakistani Muslim running the party. A Pakistani Muslim runs the Reform Party. It's unbelievable, really. And it's not even a Pakistani Christian, which would still be bad, right? I don't want a Pakistani Christian running any British political party. Full stop. End of sentence. I don't need to qualify that. I don't want it. It's unnecessary. It's the same way, in fact, that I see some of the political stuff that goes on. There's a woman in America, Valentina or something like that. She's very amusing, right? She's very entertaining. And she does all these stunts, and she went out to a Muslim rally and she was screaming and shouting and booing and hooting. And you know what I saw? I saw loads of people in the comments saying, great, now when are you going home? You're from Mexico or Colombia. You need to go, right? People are really coming out along the Christian nationalist lines and saying, listen, no harm to you. This all sounds great, but take it home. Let us deal with our lands. You take your stuff home. So, yeah, Joseph Taylor says, I don't want any more low IQ Hindu people. The Hindus are, Jim spoke about this the other day on the Templar Show. The Hindus are like the new golden calf of the neocons, because the Indians are so in bed let's keep this clean, in bed with Israel, that the neocons, and because the Indians, the Hindus hate the Muslims, the neocons love them. The Hindus massacred the Christians throughout history, and they continue to do so. In India, they are massacring them. They are slaughtering them. They are burning our churches. These are our brothers and sisters in Christ living in their home nation. Indians in India deserve to be treated with respect, deserve to be allowed to live without being burnt by Hindus. So I don't want these people in my country with their big old statues of their monkey gods and all the different legs, that disgusting pagans. And I'm going to say something here, and look, take this how you will. That woman, that blonde woman with the big pagan tattoo on her arm, is no less pagan than the Indians, the Hindus, that are bowing down to that 90-foot statue that you guys have got in Texas, of all places, of a big Hindu monkey god. And all the Indians, the Hindus are bowing down to it. They're no less pagan, maybe the different origins, right? But they're still pagans. We are not. We are Christians. And the nation, this nation that I'm in, and the nation that those of you in the US and those of you in Europe that you are sitting in right now, was built on Christian values. Built on Christian values, from our legal system, everything. It always makes me laugh when people say, oh, the Bible's, someone said it online earlier, the Bible's insignificant. Really? Okay, well, the Bible is where all of our laws and even our most common sayings, our moral compass, is based on the Bible. It's biblical. The 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not murder. This is what formed common and statute law in the United Kingdom, which was taken by the absolute best of us, who then went off to America and established the New Jerusalem, right? The land of milk and honey, took all of those Christian values, didn't go over there and say, we're going to make American pagan. No, absolutely not. Christian. So don't part with any of the pagans. We don't want any of them. I'm not having them in my camp. I don't want them in my camp. Whether they're worshipping monkeys and they've got high IQ, or they've got 4 tattoos and they're low IQ, calling children niggers. I don't want any of it. I don't want any of it. Let's do better. Now, obviously, the white European or the white Americans, they need to stay. We just need to bring up a better class of people. That's all. If we had better standards in our respective Christian nations, we wouldn't be the mess that we're in. We wouldn't be in this mess. So there you go. Michael says, I agree. The Bible needs to be taken more seriously. Too right, Michael. Too right. If we had a culture based on biblical tradition and culture, and we applied, biblical, I'm not talking about old law, but I'm talking, we have laws and commands that we should be living under right now, under the new covenant. If we applied them to society like we used to do, even just 60, 70 years ago, this country would be completely different. We didn't have mass immigration then. We didn't have degeneracy. We didn't have all the LGBT flags on the streets and people parading around with their private stuff. We didn't have any of that. We didn't have any of that. All of that's come in from Zionism, and it's come in from the people that hate Christians because they hate Christ.
No, it's white liberals.
To destroy our Christian lands. So hopefully I give you some ammunition. Oh, and on that note, just before I go, because I've been ranting for too long, I need to go. I've kept you all long enough. There's a link there to help us rebrand our magazine. Please do. We had a bit of a problem with the donation page, so I just want to make sure that. All
right, that's about as far as we'll go on that. This next one's really good about the judge. He tried to take off out of the country. For those watching, Lee and Renee and that. Oh, yeah, I'm on screen. I thought I wasn't on screen for a second. Yeah, this is really interesting. It turns out that she did discovery, and they got some recordings he tried to get rid of, and text messages and notes. He was getting orders from up above to go after these people. This judge tried to prosecute someone in her courtroom, Levitt, for wearing a cross in the courtroom. He was banning crosses from being worn in the courtroom. And it turned into discovery and finding out that this guy's like super corrupt. Several of the other ones in the DC circuit were all taking orders from up above. All the goods are coming out on this. This guy tries to flee. He took his money, tried to flee, tried to get on a special plane, get out, and take all this money out of his bank account because she's suing him for $800 million. It's really bad. It was more than one case of this where he was holding people in contempt, and a lot of the communications was all these cases. You wonder how some of these rulings are so ridiculous, but there's people above them telling them what they're supposed to rule. They're not independent at all. You won't believe this. It's unbelievable.
A political legal earthquake just erupted in the heart of Washington, D.C. When Judge Charles Hargrove thought a $500 fine would silence Karoline Leavitt, he was gravely mistaken. Leavitt not only resisted, she counterattacked with an $800 million legal blow. At 27, sharp and outspoken, Leavitt isn't just the youngest White House press secretary in history, she's the new icon of uncompromising conservatism. And this time, her target isn't the liberal media or Hollywood, but a federal judge sitting on the bench of justice. It all began in a tense courtroom, where Leavitt was sent on President Trump's orders to oversee a lawsuit involving a group of Christians banned from public prayer. But instead of merely observing, she became the focal point when Judge Hargrove fined her $500 just for wearing a cross. In front of dozens of witnesses, the judge loudly criticized her as a fanatic and declared the cross doesn't belong here. But Karoline didn't flinch. As soon as she left the courtroom,
no, that this judge was judging on Christian prayer, making it actually illegal, kind of like what they're doing in Europe. Orders from up above, though. It turns out there's orders from up above. Watch this.
She called her lawyer and declared Sue Hargrove and the D.C. court for defamation, violation of the First Amendment. This is the counterattack, and it's worth $800 million. While the press was still debating the legality of the fine, Karoline unleashed a thunderbolt. The media exploded, social media erupted. One side called her a warrior for religious freedom, the other accused her of exploiting faith for political aggression, and according to some insider sources, Judge Hargrove is facing immense pressure, not just from the public, but from within the judiciary itself. Amid rising public outcry and mounting pressure from both the political and judicial systems, Judge Hargrove's seat is starting to wobble. Karoline Leavitt isn't backing down, and the storm she's created is just beginning. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. At the White House office, Karoline Leavitt's eyes blazed with determination. The silver cross around her neck gleamed, as if reminding her of the battle she just ignited at the D.C. District Court. The recording of Judge Charles Hargrove's insults fanatic, dangerous spokesperson, still echoed in her mind. She didn't just want to win, she wanted him to pay dearly. Karoline's fingers flew across her laptop, sending an email to Rachel Harper, the notorious conservative lawyer, nicknamed the Judge Hunter. Rachel, her blonde hair tightly bunned, stepped into the room, her voice sharp as a blade. Hargrove isn't just targeting you, Karoline. He's a pawn of the liberal elite, trying to weaken Trump through you. Rachel laid out the plan. Charge Hargrove with intentional defamation, while suing the D.C. court for enabling anti-religious bias. We'll demand the federal court expedite the proceedings. Rachel emphasized, her eyes gleaming. The damage to your reputation is urgent, they'll have to comply. Karoline nodded, feeling her pulse race. She wanted Hargrove to feel the pressure she felt in that courtroom. Just 24 hours later, the federal court agreed, ordering Hargrove to provide all related documents within 48 hours, a harsh deadline. Karoline didn't wait. She contacted Jake Torres, a social media strategist from Trump's 2024 campaign. Jake, make #judge on trial, go viral, she said over the phone. Jake, with the speed of a hacker, coordinated with TikTokers and YouTubers, pushing the courtroom audio onto X. Within hours, the hashtag surged past 50,000 mentions, with a viral video, footage of Karoline standing at the defendant's podium, her resolute voice echoing through the speakers of thousands. Hargrove thinks he's above the law, a TikToker commented. But Karoline will show him justice. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit D.C. office, Hargrove sat hunched behind his desk, his eyes panicked. News of the $800 million lawsuit flooded TV screens. He turned on his computer, hands trembling as he opened his email, scrambling for a way to respond. This is just a young girl's stunt, he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. He called Judge Ellen Carver, a longtime ally with silver hair and a cold gaze. Ellen, what does she have against me? Hargrove asked, his voice faltering. Carver, in another courtroom, whispered over the phone. Calm down, Charles. I'll put pressure on the witnesses. She can't win without evidence. Hargrove nodded, but sweat beaded on his forehead. Suddenly, an anonymous email landed in Karoline's inbox, sent by Ethan Brooks, an IT staffer at the D.C. court. I saw Hargrove and Carver's emails, Ethan wrote, attaching a PDF. Karoline opened the file, her heart pounding. It was a chain of emails between Hargrove and Carver, plotting to teach Karoline a lesson to send a message to Trump. One line enraged her. Target, her cross, it'll throw the conservatives into chaos. Karoline forwarded the email to Rachel, then to Jake. Go public now, she ordered. Within hours, Fox News ran the headline, D.C. judge conspires to smear White House press.
So they were targeting them. There's more to come on this, but they were all working together to target them. Okay? More to come here.
Secretary. Hash judge on trial exploded, surpassing 100,000 mentions, with ex-users commenting, Hargrove's done. Karoline's a legend. Hargrove, watching the news at home, felt the floor collapse beneath him. He opened his laptop, trying to delete emails from the court's server, but a message popped up. System has saved copies. Ethan Brooks, from the corner of the IT office, smiled discreetly, having just sent a tip to Linda Martinez, an investigator with the D.C. Judicial Council. Linda, with 20 years of experience, received Ethan's message and immediately assembled her investigative team. If Hargrove deletes evidence, he's violating federal law, she said, her voice firm. Meanwhile, Hargrove's colleagues began distancing themselves. Miss Thompson, the court clerk, secretly photocopied her notebook, preparing to hand it to Karoline. James Wilson, a court officer, whispered to a colleague, Hargrove was wrong. Livet's doing the right thing. Karoline knew Hargrove was terrified, and she wasn't done. Rachel walked in, placing a thick stack of documents on the table. The court just ordered a search of Hargrove's office, she announced. We're about to get more evidence. Karoline nodded, her hand touching her cross. Linda Martinez stood in the D.C. District Court's archive room, fluorescent lights illuminating her stern face. With 20 years of investigative experience, she knew the leaked emails from Ethan Brooks, revealing Judge Charles Hargrove and Ellen Carver's plot against Karoline Leavitt, were just the tip of the iceberg. Her hand glided over dusty file shelves, stopping at a locked iron box labeled Internal Records. Hargrove. Open it, Linda ordered her assistant, her voice low but sharp. Outside, the investigative team searched Hargrove's office, the sound of footsteps and rustling papers echoing through the hallway. Karoline's $800 million lawsuit was shaking D.C., and Linda was determined to find evidence to crush him. Meanwhile, Karoline sat in her White House office, her laptop screen glowing with hundreds of posts. She clicked on a new TikTok video, a young man reenacting Hargrove, yelling at her in court, captioned Karoline's burning down the system. She smiled, but her eyes were icy. Jake Torres, the media strategist, knocked on the door, holding a tablet. Karoline, Thompson just reached out. She has what we need, he said, his voice excited. Thompson, the court clerk, had sent a brief message, 12 years of notes. Hargrove targeted religion. Meet me tonight. Karoline nodded, adrenaline surging. She knew this fight wasn't just for her, but for millions trampled by the judiciary. At a small cafe on the outskirts of D.C., Thompson, her hair tightly bunned, slid a leather-bound notebook across the table to Karoline. Hargrove find crosses, hijabs, anything tied to faith, she whispered, glancing around. But t-shirts with vulgar slogans, he laughed them off. The notebook listed dozens of cases, a man fined $400 for wearing a prayer pin, a Muslim woman warned for her headscarf. Karoline flipped through the pages, her fingers gripping the cover tightly.
So it turns out a lot of senators and stuff on the left were telling these judges to do this. They were getting orders from up above. And those people were getting orders from up above. That's all coming.
This is gold, she said, her voice low but resolute. Thompson nodded, her eyes flickering with fear. If he finds out I did this, I'm out of a job, she said, Karoline placed a hand on her shoulder. You're doing the right thing. I'll protect you. At the same time, Linda opened the iron box in the archive room, uncovering Hargrove's black file, a thick dossier documenting 200 cases of fines on religious symbols over 5 years, 80% targeting Christians. A handwritten note by Hargrove shocked her. Keep the courtroom clean of fanaticism. Linda frowned, passing the dossier to her analysis team. She called James Wilson, the court officer who had witnessed Hargrove's behavior. Wilson, standing outside the courthouse hallway.
Anyone Christian was fanatic to them. And these cases were for people praying at like abortion clinics and that, for praying or praying at other places or wearing a cross. That was fanatic to them. They wanted to jail them all and fine them all.
Spoke in a low voice over the phone. I counted 25 cases last year. Crosses, pins. He fined them double compared to other violations. Linda jotted notes quickly, sensing the web of injustice unraveling. Karoline, back at the White House, received an email from Linda with a scanned copy of the black file. She read each line, her anger flaring. She called Jake, posted all on social media platforms. The public needs to know who Hargrove is. Within 30 minutes, #judge on trial surpassed 300,000 mentions, with images of the dossier pages going viral. One post read, Hargrove finds crosses but lets vulgar shirts slide. He's gotta go. Karoline appeared on Newsmax, her voice steely. Hargrove isn't a judge. He's an oppressor of faith, and I'll expose him. Viewers applauded through the screen, the hashtag exploding globally. Hargrove, in his dark apartment, watched the news with a pale face. His phone buzzed incessantly. The Judicial Council had called an emergency meeting. He opened an email, seeing a notice from Linda, provide an explanation within 24 hours. His hands shook as he tried calling Carver, but she didn't answer. He scrolled through his phone, seeing mocking posts. Hargrove, start packing. He slammed his hand on the table, his voice hoarse. She's just a girl, but deep down, he knew he was losing. He dialed an unknown number, a secret fixer. I need to get out of this, he whispered, his eyes frantic. Linda, at the investigation office, received a new email from Ethan Brooks. Hargrove was taking orders from Senator Daniel Klein, Ethan wrote, attaching emails between Hargrove and Klein, a prominent anti-Trump liberal figure. Klein wrote, target Levitt, discredit her, and Trump will falter. Linda forwarded the email to Karoline with a note, this is the spark you need. Karoline read the email, her lips pursed tightly. She called Rachel Harper, we've got Hargrove and Klein, push the lawsuit harder. Rachel, in her law office, gave a cold smile. They don't know who they've just messed with. Jake at the media headquarters pushed the Klein email onto X, with the caption, Hargrove is a puppet of the liberal elite. The Newsmax video went viral, with comments Karoline is tearing the system apart. Crowds began gathering outside the D.C. courthouse, holding signs reading Justice for Faith. Hargrove, from his apartment, heard the chants through the window. He drew the curtains, his heart pounding. A message from the fixer arrived, plane ready. Switzerland tomorrow. Hargrove not.
I didn't hit myself back in, so I started talking. Yeah, does anyone know if the reason why Judge Janine is coming in there to straighten things out? Because I think several judges are going down about this. They're all connected, all talking to each other. And I think several judges were getting money for this, that there's money involved, and there was orders coming down from up above these judges. Judges aren't really independent. They're controlled from up above to rule certain ways on certain cases. That's all going to be coming out. I'll be covering this story as much as I can get little bits and pieces because the mainstream media isn't covering it, that's for sure. If anyone knows if Judge Janine is the reason why she's coming in, because I believe that the judge that she's replacing had to step down connected with this. I don't know if anyone knows anything. Let me know.
But his eyes were vacant. He knew he wasn't just losing power. He was losing everything. Karoline Leavitt stood before a mirror in the White House press room, adjusting her navy blazer. the silver cross gleaming like an unyielding flame. The TV screen behind her showed crowds outside the D.C. District Court, holding high signs reading "Justice for Faith." After Hargrove's black file and Senator Daniel Klein's emails were exposed on social media, spreading like wildfire, Karoline took a deep breath, preparing for the biggest press conference of her career. She didn't just want to win the $800 million lawsuit. She wanted Charles Hargrove completely isolated, with nowhere to hide. Rachel Harper, Karoline's lawyer, walked in holding a new stack of documents. "Linda just sent more evidence," Rachel said, her voice triumphant. Hargrove contacted Klein through an encrypted app, but Ethan recovered the messages. Karoline skimmed the printout. Hargrove wrote, "Levitt is a threat. We must silence her." She gave a cold smile, handing the documents to Jake Torres, the media strategist. "Jake, make this a blockbuster," she said. Jake nodded, his eyes gleaming, immediately contacting the TikToker and YouTuber team. Within hours, the encrypted messages were turned into a viral video, with flashing text. "Hargrove conspired against Karoline. Who is he?" Under blazing flashbulbs, Karoline stepped to the press conference podium, her voice resounding. "Charles Hargrove didn't just find me for my faith. He's a puppet of the liberal elite, targeting me to hurt President Trump." She held up the Hargrove-Klein message printout, cameras zooming in. "This is proof he conspired to defame me, and through me, millions of people of faith." The press room erupted with questions, but Karoline remained calm, citing the black file and Thompson's notebook. The media exploded. One post read, "Karoline just dropped a nuclear bomb on Hargrove." The press conference video hit 1 million views in 2 hours. Outside the D.C. District Court, a crowd of hundreds gathered, chanting "Hargrove, resign." Banners depicted crosses and the words, "Justice for Karoline," waved high. A mother held up a photo of her son, once fined by Hargrove for a prayer pin, shouting, "Levitt speaks for us." Fox News and Newsmax broadcast live, calling Karoline a torch of justice. But CNN and MSNBC pushed back, labeling her a political agitator. Karoline fired back on Newsmax that night, her voice sharp. "They call me an agitator. I'm just demanding the justice Hargrove trampled." The public rallied. Karoline 1, liberal media 0. Hargrove, hiding in his dark apartment, turned on the TV, seeing Karoline's face fill the screen. He shut it off, hands trembling, his phone flooded with messages from colleagues distancing themselves. He opened the door, finding a letter from his wife. "Charles, I can't go on, I'm gone." His son, a young lawyer, posted on X, "I'm ashamed of my father." Hargrove slumped into a chair, his mind reeling. He scrolled social media, seeing mocking memes, an image of him in a clown hat, captioned "Hargrove, the hypocrite judge." He called his fixer, his voice breaking. "Isn't the plane ready? I can't take this anymore." The fixer replied, "Tomorrow morning, Switzerland. Stay quiet." The next day, Hargrove, still in his apartment, heard patrol cars nearing his home. Linda Martinez's investigative team had arrived with a search warrant. He drew the curtains, his heart pounding. A message from Carver came. "Charles, they have everything. I can't help anymore." He threw his phone, screaming, "She's destroyed me." He opened a suitcase, stuffing in documents, his eyes frantic. The fixer called again. "Plane's ready. Don't get caught." Hargrove nodded, knowing he had no choice. He looked at his apartment one last time, the sense of power he once had evaporating. Linda at the courthouse received a report from the search team. Hargrove left behind a laptop with undeleted data, confirming his encrypted app communications with Klein. She called Karoline. "We have more messages. Hargrove's about to flee." Karoline, at the White House, stood by a window, looking out at a twinkling D.C. "Let him run," she said, her voice cold. "Justice will catch up." She touched her cross, feeling the strength of those standing behind her. The federal courtroom in Washington, D.C., buzzed with tension, sunlight streaming through tall windows, casting sharp shadows on the polished wooden floor. Karoline Levitt, standing at the plaintiff's table, her navy blazer impeccable, the silver cross gleaming as an uncompromising challenge. The $800 million defamation lawsuit against Charles Hargrove and the D.C. court system reached its peak, fueled by a cascade of evidence: Hargrove's black file, Thompson's notebook, Senator Klein's emails, and the encrypted messages. Outside, the protesting crowd roared, their chants echoing through the thick walls. Karoline's image dominated screens nationwide. Today, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was dismantling a corrupt system with Hargrove as the target to crush. Rachel Harper, Karoline's lawyer, adjusted her glasses, exuding authority as she organized the evidence: audio recordings, scanned documents, witness testimonies. Across from her, Hargrove sat hunched, his once imposing presence now shrunken, eyes darting with anxiety. Ellen Carver, his ally, her silver hair tightly bunned, face pale as she sensed defeat approaching. The courtroom buzzed, reporters scribbled frantically, influencers live-streamed, and citizens clutched signs reading "Faith over Fear." Judge Amelia Ruiz, a stern woman renowned for fairness, banged her gavel, silencing all noise. Proceed with the...
You think any of this evidence will lead to some other people that'll turn on them and go state's witness and talk and turn over more evidence of the inner circles, communications, and this and that? There's more coming up on it there about that. Some of them are going to fold, I think. Some of them are, whether and go down themselves.
The plaintiff, she declared,
Money involved,
her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Rachel opened with lethal precision, projecting Hargrove's black file onto a large screen: 250 cases of fines on religious symbols over 6 years, 80% targeting Christians. This wasn't a mistake, she said, pointing to Hargrove's handwritten note: religion is a threat. The courtroom gasped. Rachel played the audio from the district court, Hargrove's voice snarling, calling Karoline a fanatic and dangerous lackey. She continued with Thompson's notebook, listing selective fines, then Klein's emails urging Hargrove to smear Levitt. Finally, she revealed the encrypted messages, recovered by Ethan Brooks, where Hargrove plotted to break Karoline. The courtroom erupted in boos, and Ruiz banged her gavel for order. Karoline took the witness stand, her posture solid as stone, her voice steady yet fiery. Hargrove didn't just fine me for this cross, she said, her fingers touching the silver chain. He turned the judge's bench into a weapon to crush my faith and my role beside President Trump. She stared directly at Hargrove, who shrank under her gaze. He thought he could defame me, but he underestimated the power of truth. Rachel presented Klein's email, and Karoline read aloud: Levitt is Trump's weak point. Destroy her. Whispers spread through the room. A woman in the audience murmured, "She can't be stopped." Hargrove's lawyer, Victor Klein, no relation to the senator, tried to deflect, arguing Hargrove's actions were procedural. Rachel countered, calling Linda Martinez as a witness. Linda, radiating authority, testified about the black file and Hargrove's attempt to delete evidence, a federal crime. James Wilson followed, his low voice recounting 30 cases of religious symbol fines in a year, ignored by Hargrove's colleagues. Thompson, trembling but resolute, described Hargrove's bias. He mocked a boy's prayer ring but overlooked shirts with vulgar slogans. Ethan Brooks, the whistleblower IT staffer, detailed recovering deleted messages.
30 cases. How many cases do they handle? More than one, much more than one a week? You know, that's almost every case. Almost every case.
Earning a nod from Karoline. Each witness tightened the noose around Hargrove. Cross-examination began. Rachel called Hargrove to the stand, and he stumbled forward, sweat beading on his forehead. "Did you target Miss Levitt to undermine President Trump?" Rachel asked, her voice sharp as a sword. Hargrove stammered. I was just staying neutral." Karoline, from the plaintiff's table, was permitted by Ruiz to stand. "Neutral?" she challenged, her voice booming like thunder. "You fined my cross but excused vulgar slogans. You took orders from Senator Klein to take me down." "Why?" The courtroom held its breath. Hargrove's face crumpled, his voice breaking. "I was pressured." Klein said it was strategy. Gasps echoed through the room. Ruiz's gavel stayed silent. Rachel pressed on, displaying Hargrove's note: "Religion is a threat." This is your
Does anyone know who Senator Klein is? Which senator that is?
neutrality, she questioned. Hargrove, cornered, broke into tears. I didn't mean to, I was just following orders. The courtroom exploded, shouts of liar, resounding. Karoline, unflinching, stepped forward. You chose to defame me and countless others for their faith. You betrayed justice. Hargrove collapsed into his chair, tears streaming as Ruiz called for order. Carver, watching, covered her face, knowing her own trial loomed. Rachel called Carver, whose testimony crumbled under pressure. Did you conspire with Hargrove to target Miss Levitt? Rachel asked, presenting an email where Carver wrote, hit her faith, it'll hurt. Carver faltered. It was just a suggestion, but Rachel countered with Ethan's recovered messages, proving coordination. Carver broke, admitting, we thought we'd succeed. Boos erupted, and Ruiz warned the audience, but the damage was clear. Hargrove and Carver were exposed, their plot laid bare before the public. The trial paused, but the courtroom's energy spilled onto social media. A post declared, Karoline just buried Hargrove. A viral clip captured her confronting Hargrove, captioned, this is justice. Reporters mobbed Karoline outside the court, but she spoke calmly. This isn't just about me, it's about everyone Hargrove silenced. Inside, Hargrove sat alone, his lawyer whispering in panic. He knew the verdict was coming, bringing his complete downfall. Karoline returned to the White House, greeted by applause from staff. Jake rushed in, tablet glowing. You're a legend. X is calling you the legal lioness. She smiled, but her mind was on the next step. Linda called. Hargrove's team is panicking. He might not show up tomorrow. Karoline nodded, touching her cross. Let him hide. He can't escape. Trump texted. You crushed it, Levitt. Keep going. She smiled, knowing Hargrove's downfall was sealed. Outside, protesters grew louder, their chants echoing through D.C. streets. A young man held a sign, Karoline for Justice. A pastor live-streamed, praising her courage. On X, a lawyer tweeted, Hargrove's career is over. Levitt rewrote the game. Karoline, scrolling through the posts, felt her mission surge. Hargrove tried to destroy her, but she turned his hammer to dust. Karoline returned to her office, opening an email from a mother. Hargrove, find my son for a cross. You're our light. She read it, heart warmed, but resolve intensified. Jake reported. Protests spread to Virginia. You started a movement. She nodded, knowing this trial didn't just take down Hargrove, it was changing the system. Meanwhile, Hargrove, in the courtroom, stared at the empty gallery, feeling final isolation. Karoline had won, and he knew there was no way back. Under the gray sky of a private airstrip outside Washington, D.C., Charles Hargrove, once a powerful judge, now cowered in a black coat, cap shielding half his face. A small jet waited, engines humming softly, ready to whisk him to Switzerland, a country with no extradition treaty with the U.S. After the brutal federal trial, where Karoline Levitt crushed him with the black file, Senator Klein's emails, and unrelenting testimonies, Hargrove knew he'd lost. Karoline's $800 million lawsuit didn't just destroy his reputation, it forced him to flee, turning him into an international laughingstock. Hargrove boarded the plane, clutching a suitcase stuffed with documents and some cash. The fixer, a gaunt man named Marco, closed the cabin door, whispering, "No one knows you're here, stay quiet." Hargrove nodded, but his eyes were hollow, his mind reeling with Karoline's image on the witness stand, her voice thundering, "You betrayed justice." He opened his phone, scrolling X one last time. A post hit him hard, his image mocked as a clown, captioned, "Hargrove flees. Karoline wins." He shut off the device, chest heavy, the power he once held now mere ashes. Meanwhile, at the White House, Karoline sat in her office, soft light illuminating her face. She watched a trial clip, her confrontation with Hargrove viewed millions of times. Jake Torres, the media strategist, knocked, voice excited, "Hargrove's gone. Sources say he boarded a plane this morning." Karoline gave a cold smile. Running won't escape justice. She touched the silver cross on her blazer, feeling strength from her supporters, Thompson, Wilson, Ethan, and the public. Linda Martinez called, voice firm. We have a federal warrant. Hargrove deleted evidence, obstruction of justice. Karoline nodded, good. Bring him back. In D.C., Linda's investigative team searched Hargrove's apartment, finding a laptop with undeleted data confirming his encrypted app communications with Klein. A handwritten note, hastily stuffed under a desk, made Linda pause. Levitt's too strong, must leave. She snapped a photo, sent it to Karoline, with the message, he knew he lost. The public erupted as news of Hargrove's flight spread. A TikToker posted a video, a private jet taking off, intercut with Karoline at trial, captioned, Hargrove runs, but Karoline's the storm. The video hit 3 million views, with comments, cowardly judge, Levitt's a legend. International media joined the manhunt. A Swiss reporter spotted Hargrove at a luxury villa in Geneva, hiding under an alias. Images of him, Capl, sneaking into the house, spread on CNN International, with the headline, U.S. Judge flees after bombshell lawsuit. Hargrove became the fugitive judge, with mocking memes. Him on a yacht, captioned, Hargrove thinks Switzerland will save him. He turned on the TV in the villa, seeing his face on the news, the anchor's voice dripping with sarcasm. From judge's bench to fugitive, Hargrove's a global joke. He slammed his hand on the table, shouting, but no one heard. In D.C., Ellen Carver faced consequences. The Judicial Council suspended her, launching an investigation based on her emails and messages to Hargrove. A young lawyer at the D.C. court resigned, tweeting, I won't work under Hargrove and Carver's shadow. The D.C. court, once a symbol of power, now reeled in crisis, with other judges scrutinized for ties to the black file. Linda held a press conference, voice steely, Hargrove violated federal law. We'll bring him back. The crowd outside the courthouse cheered, holding signs, Karoline leads, Hargrove fails. Karoline held a press conference at the White House, standing before the American flag, voice calm but powerful. Hargrove fled, but justice knows no borders. He thinks Switzerland is a haven. We'll find him. She held up the $500 fine receipt from the initial trial, now framed. This was the start. Now it's victory. Cameras flashed, social media erupted. Karoline's a warrior. One post read, Hargrove runs, but Levitt's his nightmare. She ended the conference, calling out, stand up for faith and justice, as we did today. Hargrove, in his Geneva villa, opened his laptop, seeing the federal warrant. He tried transferring money to an offshore account, but the Justice Department blocked all transactions. A message from his fixer arrived. They know you're here. Leave now. Hargrove panicked, glancing out the window, spotting reporters gathering. He drew the curtains, heart pounding, knowing he had nowhere left to hide. A Swiss news report called him a despicable fugitive, and Hargrove, for the first time, felt absolute loneliness. Karoline at the White House watched the news about Hargrove, her lips curling into a subtle smile. Jake walked in. You did it. Hargrove's a global laughingstock, she nodded, touching her cross. This isn't the end. Justice continues. Outside protests spread from D.C. to major cities, with signs reading Karoline for justice. A pastor on X wrote, Levitt didn't just beat Hargrove, she won for all of us. Karoline, gazing at D.C.'s twinkling lights, knew she'd turned a trial into a movement, and Hargrove, though far away, couldn't escape her shadow. In the city, the chants of protesting crowds echoed, carrying signs reading Karoline for justice, after Charles Hargrove, once a powerful judge, became a fugitive in Switzerland. The $800 million defamation lawsuit didn't just crush Hargrove, it sparked a judicial reform movement, with Karoline as its figurehead. Posts about Karoline still blazed across social media, spreading from D.C. to distant states, making her a symbol of justice and faith. Rachel Harper walked in, a rare smile on her stern face. The federal court just issued its ruling, she announced, handing over a document copy. You won, Karoline. Major damages, and the D.C. court must reform. The amount wasn't disclosed, but the ruling mandated the D.C. District Court to issue new regulations, banning fines on religious symbols, unless they cause disruption, and requiring First Amendment training for all judges. Karoline read, pride swelling. This is the start, she said, voice low but strong. Rachel nodded. You changed the game. The news spread fast. Fox News ran the headline, Levitt wins big, Hargrove flees. A pastor posted.
Wait a minute. First Amendment training for judges? Shouldn't they know the Constitution and the First Amendment? It should be, and they swear an oath on the Bible. What the heck?
Karoline protected our faith. Jake Torres, the media strategist, sent Karoline a globally viral trial video of her. Crowds gathered at a D.C. park, where Christians once sued for being banned from public prayer, now held a celebration. They invited Karoline to speak, displaying banners. Freedom Park, thanks to Karoline. She stood on a wooden podium before hundreds, voice resounding. Hargrove wanted to crush faith, but we turned this park into a symbol of freedom. The crowd cheered, raising crosses and signs. Other states took action. Texas passed a law protecting religious symbols in courtrooms, citing Karoline's lawsuit. Florida and Ohio followed, mandating First Amendment training. Texas's governor tweeted, "Thank you, Levitt, for the fire of justice." The Justice Department, impressed by Karoline's victory, invited her to serve as a special advisor on religious freedom. She accepted, feeling a greater responsibility than ever. A young Ohio lawyer wrote, "You inspired me to open a free clinic for victims of religious discrimination." Karoline read, eyes shining, knowing her movement was growing. Linda Martinez, at the Judicial Council office, released a final report. Hargrove violated federal law, and Ellen Carver was permanently removed. The D.C. court pledged transparent oversight, appointing a committee led by Linda. A young judge tweeted, "Levitt forced us to look at ourselves. The judiciary will be better." Support continued, with posts Karoline didn't just win a lawsuit, she's reshaping justice. A TikToker created a video, D.C., Pulse Park glowing, intercut with Karoline speaking, captioned, "From Cross to Freedom." Karoline received an email from a young girl, "Hargrove find my prayer bracelet. You're my hero," she replied. "You're the hero for holding your faith." Jake walked in, tablet glowing. "You started a revolution, Karoline." Protests reached California. She nodded, looking at D.C.'s twinkling lights. Hargrove might have fled, but his legacy, a biased system, was crumbling under her strength. She opened X, seeing a post from a law student. "I'm studying law because of Levitt." She proved justice is real. Karoline Levitt stood at a podium in Congress, stage lights illuminating her face, the silver cross on her navy blazer a steadfast flame. Before lawmakers she presented a plan for national judicial reform, voice echoing, "We must protect faith from unjust hammers." The $800 million lawsuit against Charles Hargrove didn't just defeat him, it ignited a wave of...
Lee, what do you mean by wingman for the J6ers? I'm hoping they get justice and they can find, get some lawsuits and discovery. The discovery's the biggest thing. The video I'm doing right after this one is about one of the cops there, DC police, has come out and he's talking. He's talking about how it was all a setup in that. And that's the next video I'm doing. He's talking. And more to come. And he does worry about, some people coming after him a bit. So I don't know what you mean exactly by wingman. Is there someone running for office and vice president to something?
Change from DC's park to distant states. Social media erupted, calling her the unquenchable torch. Karoline, once a press secretary, was now a symbol leading the future of justice. In the auditorium, Elise Stefanik stood clapping, eyes shining with pride. A congressman tweeted, "Levitt didn't just defeat Hargrove, she's shaping a new judiciary." Karoline concluded her speech, emphasizing justice doesn't stop when the guilty flee. Millions watched the live stream, commenting, "Karoline is the future." A law student emailed, "You inspired me to study law to protect faith." Karoline read it, heart warmed, knowing her legacy was taking root. In Switzerland, Hargrove, hiding in his Geneva villa, sent an apology email through a secret channel. "I was wrong," he wrote, offering to assist with remote judicial training. Karoline replied curtly, "Justice accepts reform, but doesn't forget." She forwarded the email to Linda Martinez, who was overseeing D.C. court reforms. Linda voice firm confirmed Hargrove will face the warrant wherever he is. A viral post spread. Hargrove apologizes. "Too late, livid one." Under a twinkling sky, Karoline whispered, "Justice doesn't come on its own, we must fight for it." A pastor wrote, "Levitt taught us faith and truth always prevail." She looked over the city, heart brimming with resolve. Hargrove could run, but her legacy, a fairer judicial system, would endure. "Thank you for standing with me," she messaged. The post went viral, closing one chapter, but opening a future where Karoline led, unyielding. The story of Karoline Levitt, in Judge FLEES country after Karoline Levitt, $800 million live zoot process. Speed up, reflects real tensions in American society today, especially around religious freedom, judicial bias, and the power of social media. Karoline's journey, from being fined $500 by Judge Hargrove for wearing a cross to launching an $800 million lawsuit and sparking judicial reform, shows individuals can confront unjust systems with persistence and strategy. Hargrove's black file, revealing 250 cases of fines on religious symbols, mirrors real-world disputes over religious discrimination in public spaces, like lawsuits over Christian symbols banned in schools or courthouses. Karoline's use of X and the #JudgeOnTrial hashtag to amplify her case, reaching millions, reflects social media's role in shaping U.S. public opinion, akin to movements like #MeToo or #Black Lives Matter. Hargrove's flight and reforms in Texas, Florida, and Ohio suggest that public and legal pressure can force systemic change, similar to reforms following recent judicial scandals. The lesson is that in American society, where individual freedoms are championed, anyone can drive change by leveraging the law, media, and community. Learn from Karoline, document evidence like she recorded Hargrove, find allies like Thompson and Wilson, and relentlessly expose truth through X and press conferences. Whether facing small injustices like a fine or large ones like systemic bias, fight strategically, because like Karoline, you can turn a cross into a symbol of justice, inspiring a nation. Hit the subscribe button to join Karoline in continuing the fight for justice and religious freedom. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video to explore new victories.
What everyone think on that one? Pretty pretty good one, actually, I thought. Yeah, comments, amendment, First Amendment. Yeah, this guy's a judge. Can he go to jail for that? You know, he should go to jail because he broke the law. It's breaking the law. Fining people for wearing a cross in a courtroom, that's ridiculous. I'm thinking, you know. And the Muslim city stuff, there's a lot of money coming in from like New World Order groups and stuff like that. Tons of it putting that Muslim city in Texas. See, if they win Texas, it's really hard for the Republicans to win because after the next census, they're going to gain even more seats, so more electoral votes. Mathematically, it makes it really hard. They just got to steal one other little state, you know. Muslim and Catholic churches are the ones selling out. The top of the Catholic Church, I wouldn't say the average Catholic. So bad. I hope so. I forgot what I was answering. Yeah. Well, I got another part here that you're gonna like. This is about the cops. One of the cops is talking now. That was a cop there at D.C. Let me see if I can cue it up. I'm gonna be sorry about all the ads in this. You know, there's every 10 minutes it stops for an ad or something like that, 7 minutes, something like that. And I'll fast forward it through it, or, you know, or you have to wait 4 seconds or something. You know, for some reason, they've got their Rumble videos protected. And this is from Cowboy Logic, and he had a good guest on. I got the segment here that's important. You know, it was a 2-hour show, and I got about 15 minutes of it. You know.
President Trump acknowledged how great you Barn Party drummers are. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get...
I can't imagine what would have happened if they could. Kamala Harris had stole this last election. That with the media. I can't imagine You know, not just Trump winning, we're winning other battles because of it, the ones we wouldn't have won.
Right to business. I probably should say Dana's name.
Exactly.
But we're going to
Exactly,
get right
Harris.
to business because we have got an interview here that we have waited now at least a year, if not longer, to be able to hold. And I reached out to this gentleman and through a few.
Now, Judge Janine is going to D.C. to be the top person there on the judicial system there over the judges. I think it has something to do with that whole case and what's coming out on that. So
conversations, he agreed to come on the show, and we're going to give you J6 from a big time different perspective. We have got former Lieutenant Capitol Police Tarek Johnson that is joining us. Now, you probably remember. How you doing, my friend? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing today?
We're good. You probably remember an interview that he did with Tucker Carlson, and ironically, within hours after that, Tucker was gone from Fox, if I'm not mistaken.
That seems to be the MO. You go on Tucker
And I gotta
Carlson, so
tell you,
you're toxic.
Listen, very briefly, back when Tucker was granted access to the 47,000 hours of footage, two of his producers reached out to us. And I spent about an hour and a half on the phone with them. And I said, you can do this one of two ways, gentlemen. You can go in there and try to figure out heads from tails on all of this footage, and you will be lost in a quagmire of footage. Or you can reach out to some subject matter experts that I consider to be subject matter experts, you know, Jeff McKellop, a Dan Caldwell, a Kelly Meggs, these guys that had nothing to do for days and weeks and months, but look at that footage while they were in C2B. And they didn't take me up on it. And before you know it, Tucker was gone. But I guarantee you, even somebody with a trained eye like you goes in and tries to look at that footage, it's going to take you a lifetime to go
over
through
and
it.
over and over again.
At any rate, welcome, sir, to Cowboy Logic. We are going to discuss something that you laid out a while back beautifully so that everybody can understand this, and that is the hierarchy of the Capitol Police Department, in which you've got the chief, and at the time it was Chief Sund. Mm-hmm. And then you've got two assistant chiefs. You've got Pittman, who was in charge of intel. And then you've got Thomas, who was in charge of operations. And this is very, very important that you guys listened to what I'm going to call you TK, man. I heard you go by TK. Am I right?
That's perfect. That's
okay.
Perfect. I'm used to TK. Yeah.
All right, here we go. TK is going to lay this out to you in layman terms so that you all understand what went wrong on J6. TK, have at it, sir.
Okay, so I'll start just to let the audience know that I was a member of the Capitol Police for 23 and a half years. I achieved the rank of sergeant let's go back. I was a special agent. I got that rank in 2003. I got promoted to sergeant in 2004. And I got promoted to lieutenant in 2018. When I was promoted to lieutenant, I was assigned to the Capitol Division. And on January 6th, my job was, I was the commander of routine operations in the Capitol while they were counting the electoral votes on January 6th. So that was my job. So 23 and a half years, I know a lot. I know, like I said, 23 and a half years. So just to give you an idea of what January 6th was, it was a nothing day. We expected absolutely nothing. I had planned on leaving early that day because I knew that it was going to be nothing. We had very little to no intel of anything that was supposed to occur, and that's what I thought it was. So we found out, and I don't have to go as far as what happened because everybody knows what happened on January 6th. So now we're trying to dig out what actually occurred on January 6th. So let me give you the structure. So you had Chief Stephen Sund, who was the chief of the entire Capitol Police in charge of Yogananda Pittman, who was the commander of intel, and he was in charge of, he was the direct supervisor of Chad Thomas, who was the assistant chief in charge of the operations where I worked at. So operations have to devise a plan to secure the Capitol based on the information given to them by the intel section. So the intel section basically said, you guys don't have anything to worry about. It's fine. You know, so operations on that day, we were working with the skeleton crew because we expected absolutely nothing. So Thomas was totally sandbagged. He didn't get the information. We found out after January 6th that Pittman and her deputy, Sean Gallagher, had the intel around December 20th, almost 3 weeks before January 6th. So they had the intel.
All right, let me ask you this. What intel did they have?
They had the intel, what was going to happen.
And do you have any idea what that intel said?
Yes, the report said that people were going to storm the Capitol, break in, take the subways, everything.
Really?
So,
But the intel you were provided with said that this was going to be a low impact or a low, it was
they
like a nothing burger.
Like a regular event.
They downplayed it when
absolutely nothing.
So they downplayed it when they knew millions of people might even show up. Ay, ay, ay.
100%. So
okay, and I don't want to keep interrupting you, but they had this intel as early as what date?
December the 20th.
Boom.
2020.
Okay. All right. So picture this, ladies and gentlemen. You got Chief Sund, you got Pittman, who's the assistant chief of intel, and it's the role of intel to provide operations, who Assistant Chief Thomas was in charge of, and what TK worked under, provide operations with that intel so that they could properly prepare. Is that a good way to put it?
That is exactly correct. 100%.
Okay. All right, keep going.
Okay, so now we're there. So now the intel was there. The report, you can look it up. I believe it's public. It's 21 TD 159, and it basically laid out what was going to occur. Pittman had that information and did not give it to either Chief Sund, who is the chief of the Capitol Police, or Chad Thomas, who was in charge of the Operations Bureau. So neither one of those two individuals had it. What makes it even worse is that days before, leading up to January 6th, Chief Sund was trying to get National Guard support on Capitol Hill that day. But the Senate Sergeant at Arms and the House Sergeant at Arms, the House Sergeant at Arms, his name was Paul Irving. The Senate Sergeant at Arms was Michael Stinger. They told Sund that he did not have the intel that articulated the need for the National Guard. Even though Pittman had it, she didn't give it to him. So he was denied the National Guard, or denied the ability to request the National Guard from Irving and Stinger.
Okay, hold that thought too, because this is critical. Because not only did Sund feel like it would be important to have National Guard, Trump requested it and suggested it. And I can tell you, after conducting probably close to 200 interviews with Jan 6ers, the vast majority of them behind bars, every one of them said none of this would have happened if those protesters would have walked up and stood in front of National Guard.
This is probably the most toxic thing in your kitchen, and you're using it every single day. For years, they told you wood and plastic cutting boards were safe, that they're just a normal part of every kitchen. That's a lie.
None of that would have happened. And
but my big question is, we only got a minute here. Did Donald Trump get that intel, or did Pittman hold it from him?
The biggest thing. So now that was huge. Okay, President Trump, and I was listening to I read the reports. I was listening when they did the public interviews for January 6th, the J6 Select Committee, and I'm waiting for them to say if Donald Trump had that information. He never had the intel. So if he never had the intel, how can you blame him for it if he never had the intel.
Exactly.
All right, so hold on.
All
We
right,
gotta
we're going to go to
break
break here.
This is unbelievable.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have waited a long time to bring this great man on here. And you talking about courage, we're going to find out what this has cost him. By opening his mouth and talking about this, we're going to find out what it's cost him. And it is reprehensible at best. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got TK, Tark Johnson, Capitol Police, former Capitol Police Lieutenant in the barn with us. We'll be right back.
Make our
very special 4 segments, the entire hour with Tark Johnson, former Capitol Police Lieutenant. And again, sir, not only do I appreciate you being here, I appreciate you trusting us enough with your story to come on the show with us, because we greatly appreciate that. And we value not only the role that you played to protect everybody that you touched on J6, but also that you are willing to speak out the truth, because that's the bottom line. You know, you said in one interview that you're not looking for accountability, but you are looking for the truth, so that everybody that was wronged on January 6th can be made whole. Now, that was a paraphrase quote for you, but I agree, man. You know, and I think that we got a ways to go to get this truth out. But you brought up in the last segment the Sergeant at Arms for both the House and the Senate. And very briefly, those individuals are selected by whichever party is controlling the House or the Senate at that time. So if you've got Democrat control of the House and the Senate, you're going to have a Democrat chosen Sergeant at Arms for both. But they are part of an extremely powerful entity, and that's called the Capitol Police Board. And we have been told by a mutual friend, Steve Baker, along with other J6 lawyers, that Capitol Police Board wields more power than Congress itself. And you want to explain that a little bit?
Well, I would say not Congress as a whole, you know, because Congress can still dictate who's going to be the Sergeant at Arms. So, but the position is very, very powerful. You have the House Sergeant at Arms, you have the Senate Sergeant at Arms, like you said, and you pretty much laid it out, but they can be removed. But yes, they control the Capitol Police and who's going to be the Capitol Police chief. So a member of the Capitol Police Board is more powerful than an average member of Congress, yes, you know, but no, not Speaker Mike Johnson or the Speaker of the House or, you know, the minority leader. So they're not leadership, but they're still powerful individuals, very powerful individuals. And a lot of times people don't understand that just because you don't know who these people are or what positions that they hold, they're still very, very powerful people. And the people on the Capitol Police Board are very, very powerful.
All right. Let's go back to Pittman then and Thomas and Son for that matter. Okay. Because from what I can tell, and ladies and gentlemen, you can see TK's social media, his X account there. I strongly urge you to follow him. He's very regular at posting. And again, you got to understand the level of courage that this man has. He has basically become a whistleblower for Capitol Police and the wrongs that took place at the upper echelons with the most powerful people in the Capitol Police. Pittman ends up not passing on intel to operations, causing havoc that day. And she gets promoted along with Gallagher, who gets promoted.
See, that's you.
And then Sund is terminated and Thomas is terminated. Let's get into that a little bit, because it seems like if you do something nefarious, you get promoted.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And people have to understand, like, and I wish, you know, but you know what though? Sometimes I go back and think, do people really want to know what really occurred on January 6th? I'm not 100% sure that the majority of the country really wants to know what occurred on January 6th, because when you really look at just a little piece of information that I've given you guys and the information that you've heard, Steve Baker, Pittman, Sean Gallagher withheld critical intel. They were supposed to give that critical intel to Son and Thomas. They did not. Thomas and Son were basically kicked off the department. It was not Son, but Thomas was forced to sign an NDA, I was told. Son has spoken out. You have never seen anything from Thomas. Thomas was in charge of operations. How come he doesn't testify for the J6 Select Committee? How come he's not testifying publicly in any committee? Because nobody even knows. I don't even know where he's at now. But I think that if people really want to start figuring out what really occurred on January 6th, you will probably want to start with him.
So you're saying that if, say, Jim Jordan decides he's going to do something productive, what needs to happen is he needs to put Son and Thomas, they need to be subpoenaed, they need to be sworn in, and they need to testify of exactly what, with regard to them, transpired on J6, because they got canned on January 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
It took no time.
48 hours later.
Son was. Now, Thomas was still there, but he was basically muted. He didn't say anything. And then eventually, I think a couple months later, he got the boot.
And Yogananda Pittman got promoted to Berkeley, which just happens to be Nancy Pelosi's district, to do something, there security-wise. But it does seem, if you toe the narrative, you got rewarded.
Well, I don't think it was actually Nancy Pelosi's district, but I think it was another congressman.
Oh, okay.
But she did get taken care of 100%. And when she got that job, she was actually still employed with the Capitol Police. So she was the chief of that department, California, Berkeley, and she was still the assistant chief of the Capitol Police at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Good work if you can get it.
I need to read. I got to put on my X-ray specs to read this note. Some of our very trusted J6ers that have appeared on our show claimed that there was someone calling the shots that day. Okay. And if you envision this as a control center, a command center that was calling the shots of what to do or what not to do, that would be either Pittman or Thomas, and Thomas didn't have the proper information to be making decisions anyway. He was probably flying by the seat of his pants when he saw what happened. But you said that on the comms channel that you were listening to, you were hearing repeated cries for help from uniformed officers and crickets from the command.
Nothing.
Can you expand on that?
We were ignored. And I was angry even after it occurred. I was angry at Son because I was like, why wasn't he responding on the radio? But then I found out later he was directing other resources to the Capitol so we could get some help, so we could start to de-escalate the situation.
Weeding, watering, pest battles. Who can keep up with a regular garden? It's so much.
Pittman, Gallagher had the intel. There were other commanders in there, and a lot of those guys didn't really do anything either. But it's hard to blame them directly when they didn't have the intel. So when it comes to what occurred on that day, a lot of people could have done a lot of things different. Officers, officials, demonstrators, everybody could have done things differently, but none of us expected what occurred, with the exception of Gallagher, who had the intel, and Pittman, who had the intel. So when you had the demonstrators on the ground, they would come to the Capitol. They had no idea they were being set up, and then the officers on the ground from Metropolitan and the Capitol, they had no idea they were being set up. So, and even some of the officials in the command center, they had no idea that Pittman and Gallagher had this intel and knew what was going to happen in advance. So, Son did the best that he could. And like I said, I had no issues with him. He did what he could. Pittman and Gallagher, that's my issue, and that's my focus.
Okay.
And it took 4 years to come out. That's what's so annoying.
We got less than a minute and a half before we got to go to break. I feel like this is $1 million question here. you may or may not know the answer to this.
So do I get a direct deposit after I answer it?
If you might set up a give, send, go.
It might bounce. It'll probably bounce.
Okay. Who was directing Pittman to not provide Thomas and Sund with that intel?
That's the $1 million question. I'd even pay $1,000,001 for it. Pittman has to be asked that question in a deposition or under oath. That hasn't happened yet.
Did she go before the Jan 6 committee at all?
I think she did closed hearings. She did a couple of I think she did a couple of public ones. But I can tell you, I think she did it to gain the favor of Nancy Pelosi, is why she didn't give that.
Okay. And that's speculation. I want to make sure everybody understands that I mean, it's one thing to do what you're doing. It's another thing to make sure that people understand that you're speculating on something. All right. When we get back from this break, you're going to learn a little bit about what this has cost Tarek and his family, because it's cost them a lot. We've got Tarek Johnson in the barn with us. J6 coverage on Cowboy Logic. We'll be right back.
And after national anthems.
Not necessarily a whistleblower, but a truth teller. Tarek, what has this done to your family? What has this done to your career? Because you are very outspoken about getting the truth out.
Yeah, I'm pretty outspoken, but yes, I had to forfeit my career 17 months away from full retirement. But for me, and I took a heck of a pay cut. I transferred to another federal agency. I can't really disclose where I work at now because I would have to get permission from them to talk about it publicly. But I transferred to another federal agency so I can finish out my years. But yes, I took a substantially large pay cut and forfeited my law enforcement career, so I'm not a police officer anymore. But I felt it was the best thing to do because I knew what occurred on January 6th. I knew the lies that were being told on television. And when it was time for me to come back, I didn't want to come back to them, knowing what I knew, because I wanted to be on the right side of history. So I'm glad that I left.
Well, you have integrity, sir.
In some of the videos, just real quick, and it was later on in the afternoon, you can clearly see the Capitol Police and the Metro Police saying, we were set up. We were set up. Yeah. This is a setup. And again, these are videos that took years to come out.
Because that's exactly what it was. Because they should have known. I mean, you can't have that many people coming to Capitol Hill and have no intel on it at all. So yeah, they were absolutely set up. Hotels were being booked up all around the city, and nothing from the intel section saying that this was going to be bad when they had the information. So yeah, they were angry because they were set up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you were probably the only uniformed law enforcement officer on Capitol grounds that day between Capitol Police and MPD that was sporting a MAGA red ball cap.
Uh-oh.
And
you know, wouldn't be a stretch.
Yeah, I'm probably spot on with that. But and I did say uniform because there were plain clothes that were wearing them. Okay, but in a uniform, you were the only guy. Now,
I was the only one.
You know, when you first look at that, you go, "Wow, check out him. He's a MAGA supporter." Well, you weren't in 2020. You know, you probably, I think I read you're a lifelong Democrat that left the Democrat Party after this. But, and you did say Trump 2024, I think, on your social media. Give us the story about the red MAGA hat. Why did you put it on? And then talk to us about your approaching and your discussions you had with the Oath Keepers.
Well, initially, I got a call that some of my officers were trapped at the top of the steps. So I tried to go up those steps to bring the officers back down. And I went up the first time, and on my way down that first time, he was reaching over. I thought he was going to hit me. And then he put the MAGA hat on my head. And then he asked for the hat back, but I said that I need the hat so I can, get down. And then Another guy was trying to ask what the communication was, and I was like, I got this mega hat and I'd like to keep it, but he wants his hat back. So I don't know I can't remember which hat I ended up with, but I kept the hat. So I got down the steps and I decided to keep the hat on because I had to go back up there again. And I even announced on the radio that I was wearing a mega hat so my command staff would know that I had the hat on. And I went up the steps. Well, before I went up the steps, a guy approached me and he said, wow, you know, what do you think about what's going on out here? Because he saw the red mega hat. And I told him what I thought. And then I told him that I needed some help to get up the steps. And he agreed to help me. And we got up the steps and we were able to bring the officers back.
And that was an Oath Keeper that approached you down at the bottom of the steps. Am I correct?
I found out later that he was an Oath Keeper.
Right.
No, I had not heard about the Oath Keepers until after that.
I got you. I got you. All right, while we're on Oath Keepers, let's get into some of the problems that they encountered being their trial and people that testified against them, Lazarus and Harry Dunn.
Yes.
And we actually provided footage of the Stephen Horn footage, which is public domain, that showed the Oath Keepers were actually standing in a semicircle protecting Harry Dunn, and that conflicted with not only his second and third 302 form with the FBI, but also everything that Lazarus had to say. So why don't you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, I heard there were 2 302s conducted with Harry Dunn, and I have not seen even to date either one of those 302s, so I can't really say which one's the truth because I didn't see either one. Now, Steve Baker beautifully uncovered the lies, or some people would say lies. I would call them lies. Some people may say he just didn't remember, but he put himself witnessing an interaction with the Oath Keepers and Harry Dunn at a time when he wasn't even in the building. So to me, there's no excuse for that. To me, is an outright lie, and nothing's happened, and there's no public outrage for it. You know, I still don't understand that even today. But he put himself witnessing an altercation or a contentious situation between Harry Dunn and the Oath Keepers, and he was not there, and there's no public outrage.
Well,
So
the 302s,
what do you make of that?
Dunn's 302s that the Oath Keepers were privy to see went from the first one, which is the Oath Keepers did nothing but help me, to the Oath Keepers were causing problems and were threatening, to even worse that they, you know, he feared for his life from the Oath Keepers, basically. And I'm
then
paraphrasing.
He testified against them.
And then testified against.
Why is this raised bed garden struggling and this one over here is exploding with peppers?
And then Lazarus comes in and talks about where he was when he wasn't. And going back to that footage, that Stephen Horn footage, Kelly Meggs was sitting in the hole in D.C. post-sentencing when he saw that for the first time on our show using Pluto TV on his tablet. And he calls up and he goes, that's the footage we were asking for. I said, dude, it's on YouTube.
It would have vindicated him, and it wasn't allowed.
A question. You talking about the footage of David Lazarus not being there?
No.
Lee, there was another 1,200 that the FBI was, or they were getting ready to arrest of J6ers. If Trump had been elected, they would have been. They did arrest some even up after the election, but before he was sworn in, they were arresting some. Some of them were all like old ladies and stuff. Ones that were just in D.C. They happened to be in D.C., not even on the grounds.
I'm talking about
expanding
the footage of the Oath Keepers actually standing in a semicircle,
a sure conviction,
protecting Harry Dunn, because the footage that was provided,
They didn't get that information in trial?
No. The footage that they were provided with, ironically, stopped right before Stephen Horn got to them, and then continued up about 8 or 10 minutes down the road. And the prosecution claimed that it was damaged. And the thing is, man, Donna and I don't have access to evidence.com. We're not lawyers, okay? So we had to go find that footage, that Stephen Horn 2-hour footage on YouTube, download it, and then we could A/B after the trial. Meggs's evidence discovery, that was public domain at that point. So we laid it in and we showed exactly what they did.
Yeah.
They just stopped it, man.
I mean, the whole thing, like you say, has been a setup, a total setup. And then the sham J6 committee comes in and only picks and chooses, basically cherry picks who they want to testify. They put it on a prime time right when the Oath Keeper 1 trial was going on. So what do you think's going to happen? I mean, it was almost 100% conviction rate as it was, but it was just a total setup from start to finish of just everybody involved, which makes it just so wrong on so many levels. And yet we still don't have another real Jan 6 committee yet.
I got to ask you, we're going to break. I got to ask you for a yes or no on this. Were you ever asked to testify in any of the Oath Keeper trials?
I got subpoenaed in the Stewart Road trial.
Okay. Okay, we're going to run out of time on this segment before you can answer that, but I'd be very curious on what transpired during that testimony. Ladies and gentlemen, we have got an amazing gentleman with us, Tariq Johnson, former Capitol police officer. We'll be back with more.
Legos, sweet corn profits, and
brothers and sisters that are watching this, I hope you're paying attention to what TK's talking about here. When we went to break, we were about to jump into the Oath Keeper 1 trial. There were 3 of them, ladies and gentlemen. The Oath Keeper 1 trial involved Jessica Watkins, Kenny Harrelson, Stuart Rhodes, Kelly Meggs, and somebody else, and I'm drawing a blank on
Me
it.
too.
At any rate, you testified in that trial. Would you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I was subpoenaed in the trial, so for the prosecution. So they brought me in, and they wanted to do an interview. They wanted the Capitol Police attorneys in there, and I said I'm not talking about anything if the Capitol Police has anybody in the room. So then they said that we don't know if we can do an interview. I said fine, I'll leave. They walked out. They came back in and said, we're going to go ahead and do the interview, even without the Capitol Police. So we began. They showed me videos of what occurred with the Oath Keepers that were helping me. Watched them go up the steps. We watched them come back down. And then they wanted to know what I thought about what was occurring. And I told them unequivocally that they helped me. And I don't think I could have made it up those steps. And they basically protected me going up and down those steps, 100%. And to the FBI's credit, they didn't try to get me to lie or say, I wouldn't have done it anyway. But I told them that. And after that interview, they didn't want me to testify.
So you never testified.
Shocking that they never had you come into the courtroom.
And I would have said just that. I would have never lied to stack. Well, even though I know the DOJ was under, the Biden administration, I would not have lied. I would have told the truth.
Right. Well, that's why they didn't want you in there.
But this shows you why even now prosecutors who are leaving left and right are saying, well, that's because we can't agree with what's going on with the new DOJ. Yet they basically withheld evidence and did Brady violations in numerous cases. And that's a perfect example.
100%. And I think that there were, like when I said, yes, those people were agreed. There were hundreds and hundreds of people that were agreed on January 6th demonstrators, people who were arrested and then prosecuted. And I think that we all know about the Ashley Babbitt settlement, the pending settlement, but it's going to be a lot more settlements on both sides of this thing. Demonstrators are going to be made whole and officers.
Very quickly, a gentleman by the name of Manger, is that how you pronounce that?
Thomas Manger?
J. Thomas Manger, and he's arguably the most corrupt politician in the country. I know exactly who he is. He's the chief of Capitol Police.
Wow. And why do you say that?
Because it's just a fact. He's corrupt to the core. He's the one that was using his general counsel to not give out that video footage. If it wasn't for him, the video footage would have been out years ago. He was the primary in keeping that footage out because all he had to do would say, all right, release the footage, and it would have been released. They wouldn't have had to fight it. But
Well, can't
Major
Speaker
did the
Johnson do that?
not if Major is telling them that if you release this footage, then you are compromising Capitol security. So not even the Speaker of the House is going to go against what Major's saying, because the Speaker of the House is not an expert at security. Major supposedly is.
And he was basically hired, am I correct, to cover for Pittman and Gallagher.
100%. That's why he was brought in to cover for them.
And he is acting chief of police, or he is the chief of police?
He's the chief of police. And he was hired to do that job, and he did a wonderful job protecting those two.
Protecting those two. All right. So is he staying there? Or are they bringing somebody else in?
I don't know if you guys heard, but Roger Stone and with one of his investigative reporters broke a story that Major was under his company called Major Holdings, which
defense contracts.
Defense contracts, and apparently he was bringing in millions of dollars under his business from contracts under the Biden administration. So after that,
all right, he froze up. We're hoping we're going to get him back. There you go. There you go.
After that, what happened?
So I'll repeat it. So after that story leaked from Roger Stone and his investigative reporter, I think his name was Thomas Smith, Major resigned after the story came out that his company was getting money, millions of dollars from the Biden administration defense contracts. You know, I guess I don't know who they were, but I heard the money was coming from the Biden administration is what I heard.
Okay. And how long ago was this? When did this occur?
This was between since he was the Capitol Police chief.
Yeah.
From 2001 to probably present.
All right. So
2021.
Who's taking his place?
All right. Now you've got big concerns about who potentially could take that spot. Am I correct?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
So I recently found out that Major, who was supposed to step down yesterday, has decided to stay on a little bit longer. So I think he wants to stay on to the end of the month, so they can. So I guess he wants to try to have a say in who is going to be the next chief of police. Major put out a letter the other day, and I have a copy of the letter. I'll be posting that on X probably in the probably by tomorrow morning before the afternoon. I'll be posting that letter that Major wrote after the Ashley Babbitt settlement.
Don't mix salt with these 3 ingredients if you don't want the Mounjaro effect on your body and your pants loose in a week.
Came out, but when I say Major is totally a Democratic operative, that's exactly what he is. He's all about the Democrats.
And who is it that we need to worry about? Who do we need to worry about that may fill his shoes?
Sean Gallagher. If Sean Gallagher takes over as the chief, you can forget January 6th will go down in history as an insurrection caused by Donald Trump. If Sean Gallagher gets position, he's going to make sure nothing comes out.
So it's meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Doesn't Speaker Johnson have any say in this at all?
Sean Gallagher is a very powerful individual. So
as was Pittman.
Yeah.
As Major is now.
Yep.
And even though he's leaving, he's still.
Lee, were you there July 4th, 2020 when they came in there? Proud Boys came in and they made a circle, and then it kept expanding it, and then got around me. Later on, I had a stroke because it caused me dysarrhythmia for the next couple of years, and I kept having trouble, and eventually had the major stroke. I was just wondering, you're there. You used to go to a place called Harry's Bar or something like that, I think it was called.
Has power and
doesn't exist anymore.
Trying to pull strings as to who's going to take over, because it's important. Because if the wrong person gets in Major's position, then they're going to uncover everything, every dirty thing he did is going to come out. And
who appoints that position? Who appoints the chief of Capitol Police?
The Capitol Police Board does that.
Okay.
So it's so deep. The corruption is just so deep, and which is unbelievable. And
It's totally unbelievable.
You know, as lay people, before we got into this 4.5 years ago or so, you know, we just thought the Capitol Police were there, and they, you know, walked around the Capitol, and that's kind of who you see when you went for your Capitol, you know, whatever, when you visited the Capitol. But the amazing power that they have is eye-opening. It's totally eye-opening. Do you feel they have more power actually than Metro Police, at least right in that one area?
By far.
Oh, yeah. Metro Police doesn't have jurisdiction on Capitol grounds.
No.
The
That's
only
not their
way
primary.
they are allowed to be there, and the only way they were allowed to have been there on January 6th, is if the Capitol Police Board requested formally that they come onto the grounds to assist.
But that
And
never happened.
we don't
right?
know that
Oh,
that
we don't
ever
know.
happened.
Okay.
And we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it with that, because
They
we got to
did.
go.
They
And it was a formal request.
Yes, son, because when everything broke out, he was trying to get help to de-escalate the situation.
Oh, okay. That's
Okay.
good to know.
Well, it is good to know, because we couldn't find any proof of that.
Thank you so much for
Tarek,
joining
thank you
us.
for being. I know you got to run, and we'll close out the show without you, buddy. We appreciate you being here, man, and we hope to have you back again. All right, we've lost him, Ron.
That was perfect timing.
Yeah,
really.
ladies and gentlemen, please go follow this man on X. He's put it all on the line to tell you it would be so much easier for him to have just gone away.
Yeah.
Okay. And all right, we got to go. We got to go to the anthem. Gentlemen, remove your hats. Ladies and gentlemen, hand over your hearts for the most beautiful national anthem ever sung, that by our beloved J6ers. We'll see you next week, and we appreciate the fact that you trusted us with 2 hours of your valuable time.
Thank you, guys. God bless.
So proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Whose bright and bright stars through the perilous fight. We march, words so gallantly streaming.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm trying to get some good guests on running for House and Senate. I'm hoping it happens. You keep pushing it back on me. So we'll see this week. Okay. All right. Take care. And I think Plum's coming back Friday. Different topic each week we'll try to tackle. Okay. Take care. God bless everyone. Hopefully that information helped you. Share it around if you want. You know, I'm not making any money on this, just so the information gets around. All right. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.